מכה בכם. זה יום הדין, זה יום הדין, אללה לא עוזר לכם, צהל שוב מכה בכם. יום אחד קיבלתם פור, באתם בהמוניכם, נא הביטו לאחור, אללה לא עוזר לכם. זה יום הדין, זה יום הדין, אללה לא עוזר לכם, צהל שוב מכה בכם. זה יום הדין, זה יום הדין, אללה לא עוזר לכם, צהל שוב מכה בכם. כשעסקנו בתפילה חציתם את התעלה, כשעליתם שוב בהר לא חשבתם על מחר. זה יום הדין, זה יום הדין, אללה לא עוזר לכם, צהל שוב מכה בכם. זה יום הדין, זה יום הדין, אללה לא עוזר לכם, צהל שוב מכה בכם. אין מנוס ואין מפלט, אין לכם פשוט ברירה, אין תקווה ואין מקלט, אין כבר דרך חזרה. זה יום הדין, זה יום הדין, אללה לא עוזר לכם, צהל שוב מכה בכם. זה יום הדין, זה יום הדין, אללה לא עוזר לכם, צהל שוב מכה בכם. ברמה ובמדבר, באמצע יום הכיפורים, באתם בתרועת שופר, אך יצאתם בשברים. זה יום הדין, זה יום הדין, אללה לא עוזר לכם, צהל שוב מכה בכם. זה יום הדין, זה יום הדין, אללה לא עוזר לכם, צהל שוב מכה בכם. זה יום הדין, זה יום הדין, אללה לא עוזר לכם, צהל שוב מכה בכם.
Were you surprised to see Syrian tanks so close to your unit?
We know that was a surprise because they surprised us because we were not ready for the fight, but because it was a holiday for us. Otherwise, we wouldn't make a surprise like they did today.
Yes.
The Leaf Street Army sends its regards.
Русский военный корабль. Предлагаю сложить оружие и сдаться. Русский военный корабль, иди нахуй.
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 615 of the news. And it's good to see you all once again. And Matt is back.
Yeah. Oh! And of course, we're going to be covering the past 48 hours of the news in the Middle East and in Ukraine. Tonight's news segment will consist of the Middle Eastern news coming first. There is a smaller amount of it, and also there are some very concerning developments once again in the Middle East. And then we're going to be moving on into the major developments inside of Ukraine today. There have been major developments throughout the entirety of the Ukrainian front line, all the way from the left bank of the Dnipro River in the Kherson Oblast, and all the way up to the area of Kupyansk. There have been massive developments in both the Middle East and in Ukraine, but considering the massive international implications of the ongoing situation in the Middle East, we will be covering that first tonight. And of course, many of y'all have seen the title of this stream. U.S. forces have now officially entered Israel, according to an official Department of Defense report by some people inside of the U.S. government, specifically directly attached to the Department of Defense. We're going to be moving into that news directly right now, as we were able to get a statement that U.S. Special Forces have arrived in the number of the dozens to assist in armed operations inside of Israel. According to a senior U.S. defense official, he told the New York Times that several dozen U.S. Special Forces commandos are now on the ground in Israel to work alongside the FBI, the State Department, and other U.S. hostage recovery specialists to assist the Israeli Defense Force in rescuing upwards of 200 American and foreign nationals who are being held as hostages by Hamas in the Gaza Strip. The commandos have not been assigned to combat roles, but will help the IDF with a number of things, including planning, logistics, and negotiations. This comes right on the tail.
No combat roles,
No
Sounds
combat.
a little sketchy.
We all know what that really means. That's a whole Gulf of Tonkin thing. We're about to see some whales in the Eastern Mediterranean, and we're going to say that's the Hamas Navy. But moving on from that, we know that the U.S. is getting incredibly involved very heavily at this point, especially in the armed recovery of hostages that are inside of the Gaza Strip. And the situation, of course, has been constantly devolving, especially in the regard to hostages inside the Gaza Strip, as an unfortunate announcement was made that the lady that many of y'all were familiar with that was seen in the back of a pickup truck driving through Gaza after the music festival had been raided on the 7th of October, and hundreds of people had been killed by Hamas militants there in a massacre. She was actually declared beheaded yesterday and dead after being held hostage by Hamas for several weeks. Of course, this is showing that the hostages are in grave danger, and the Israeli Defense Forces, Special Forces, along with U.S. Special Forces, and a coalition of many other nations who are sending their own advisors and entourages into Israel as well, are all working on the armed release of these hostages through raids into the Gaza Strip that will be looking for their release. Of course, the United States has also not been dealing with this situation of just having U.S. forces officially inside of Israel for the first time ever. We have also heard of other interesting developments throughout the Middle East once more. Rocket attacks have been directed towards the capital city of Iraq in Baghdad against the U.S. Embassy, and it appears that U.S. surface-to-air missile batteries successfully were able to intercept the incoming rockets heading into Baghdad and shoot them down before any damage could be caused to the U.S. Embassy. The video clip here shows that anti-aircraft fire right there, and that appears to be a close-in weapon system, a CIWS, firing off its burst at the incoming rockets.
Man, that CRAM is beautiful. But every time you see that streak, you know that millions are being spent.
Hundreds of thousands of dollars a second. But nevertheless, it is saving the embassy officials inside of Baghdad. And amazing to know that the U.S. was, of course, on its toes in the city of Baghdad over the past 48 hours and was able to shoot down these incoming rockets before they were able to hit the U.S. embassy inside of Iraq. Of course, the U.S. Embassy in Kuwait has already stated, and also, by the way, it is a CRAM, not a CIWS, that's the shipborne one, but the U.S. Embassy in Kuwait, many days ago, has already declared that there was a state of emergency inside of Kuwait and started to limit U.S. activity in the area to what was merely essential and nothing more. And we're most likely going to be seeing that an announcement is going to be made like that from the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad for around the 5,200 U.S. soldiers that currently find themselves within Iraq. These soldiers in Iraq will be bolstered by an additional 300 soldiers, about 3 companies worth of men, that are currently being transported from the United States into the Middle East to further bolster the infantry forces that are currently near the area of the Iranian border inside of Iraq. Of course, when I say near the Iranian border, we largely just mean that Iraq borders Iran. Most U.S. bases inside of Iraq are actually more so towards the western side of the country, in the middle of the deserts, towards the area of Syria and Jordan. These bases have been there since around the mid-2010s, mostly built and still raised and run by the U.S. military to combat terrorist groups like ISIS that were operating in the region, which of course was crushed in the large part in 2018. But U.S. forces still continue to stay in the area for peacekeeping operations. Of course, while trying to keep the peace, the Iranians are hell-bent on making sure that peace is something that cannot be established inside the area of the frontiers of Syria and Iraq, as more attacks have occurred against U.S. bases today inside of Syria, and this is around the 5th attack in the past 6 hours before this stream went live. Rocket attacks have just been launched against U.S. troops at the Al-Amar oil fields in eastern Syria again. This is the second attack on the base in the last 5 hours. This was put out at 3:05 p.m., and this is just one of them that we decided to put on stream. Since then, there were around an additional 3 to 4 of these statements that were made by the OSINT Defender on Twitter, stating that there had been multiple rocket attacks on many different U.S. bases, once again in the Al-Omar oil fields in the area in between Syria and Iraq, and once again showing that Iranian terrorist groups have no intent or desire to back off their attacks on U.S. military installations. The United States government, the last time these attacks started to occur in a large portion, started to conduct airstrikes conducted by F-16s in the U.S. Air Force over the area of Syria and Iraq. we are most likely assuming that the next response by the United States is going to be a lot more severe, although we have not seen an official U.S. armed response at the moment to the terrorist groups which are continuously attacking U.S. bases inside of Syria and Iraq. Meanwhile, it appears that a new group has joined the war against Israel inside of Yemen, and in the form of the Yemen Houthis. And I just want to make sure, really quickly, that I am pronouncing that correctly. How to pronounce Houthi. Let me make sure we're pronouncing that correctly.
Is it Houthi?
Let's see. What's the correct? That is not what I'm looking for. Let's see. Let's just go to this video here. Maybe it'll give us an example. So, okay, so they stretched this out into a 46-second long video. But let's see if we get an answer.
Padding. You gotta get some padding.
The padding.
Just today, Houthi rebels fight.
Houthi. Okay, so it's not Houthi, it's Houthi. Now we know. So, anyways, moving back into this, the Houthi rebels inside of Yemen, which control a large part of Yemen at this point, they're still embroiled in the civil war, have officially declared war against the state of Israel today. This has also been accompanied over the past several weeks by cruise missiles and rockets fired from Yemeni territory towards the area of Israel and skirting over the western coast of Saudi Arabia and the Red Sea. U.S. destroyers based in the area of the northern Red Sea have successfully been able to intercept and shoot down a large portion of these missiles before they were able to make it into Israeli territory. And along with operations by the Israeli Air Force in the area around the port of Eilat, they have also been able to successfully shoot down any missiles that the United States was not able to intercept. It appears that both the Israeli Air Force and the U.S. Navy were unsuccessful today in shooting down the Houthi missiles fired from Yemen, and it appears that a new kind of missile battery, one which we've not seen in operation before, appears to have, for some reason, been able to shoot down the missiles instead. This is a little bit interesting, and this video was dated to November 1st, meaning that this thing is fresh. Right now, it is currently the 1st of November Israeli time. It's the 31st, which is Halloween our time, and so this video came out just a few mere hours ago, but shows one of those Israeli missiles intercepting the Houthi missile fired from Yemen. But you see the missile flying off into the distance, almost over the horizon, and hitting the Houthi missile, shooting it down without an Israeli Air Force or an American naval involvement.
The Houthis must have those slow missiles for it to be intercepted that easy.
Oh man, you know, the Houthis, they be, you know, I don't even know how to make a pun on the name Houthi, but we'll try and figure one out eventually. But of course, a great success to see that this missile was shot down, and some of y'all may notice that the sound from this missile in particular is a lot deeper and a louder roar than those of the Iron Dome. Listen again. Sounds almost like a jet. And that's very interesting because many people believe, and of course, I would also have to say, I've been under the misconception that Israel really just relies on the Iron Dome alone. And beyond the Iron Dome, they just rely on the Israeli Air Force to really shoot down any other incoming air target. This is markedly untrue, because apparently, this missile system that was able to shoot down that Houthi missile apparently was called the Arrow 2, and is a newer and much more advanced and longer range system than that of the Iron Dome. It's very similar in operation to the Patriot missile defense system that the United States has used, and also the THAAD missile system, which we're currently moving on into the Middle East as well right now. According to OSINT Defender, the exact missile system, the Arrow 2, has an anti-ballistic missile launched earlier in order to intercept a number of hostile drones and land attack cruise missiles, which were detected over the Red Sea, heading towards southern Israel, like we just saw in the clip. This is the first operational use of the Arrow aerial defense system since the beginning of the war in March of 2017. A very rare use of a very seldom seen missile system like this right here. And very interesting to see that this current war against largely an Iranian-backed coalition appears to be bringing around a large number of brand new and cutting-edge kinds of weapon systems that the Israelis were either testing or had rarely used up until this point, including the Arrow 2 anti-ballistic missile system that we see pictured here, as well as the Iron Beam system, which is a laser version of the Iron Dome that will shoot down incoming rockets instead of with a missile with a laser, which will burn the target so hot that it will then explode. a fairly interesting thing to see that the Israelis are innovating or using some of their innovations right now in the war to try and give themselves a bit of an advantage when dealing with incoming rockets and missiles from Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, and possibly other Iranian-backed groups. Meanwhile, the situation inside the Gaza Strip has continued to escalate over the past 48 hours, with direct Israeli involvement now clearly being seen in the Gaza Strip, and most likely denoting that the full-on ground invasion must have begun at this point, although an official declaration by the Israelis saying that a full-on ground offensive has begun has not arrived, indicating that this may be a smaller portion or a smaller force that will be preceding the full-on ground invasion, or the Israelis are putting out a little bit of confusion so that way the Hamas terrorists and Hezbollah aren't exactly sure when they've committed all of their forces inside of the Gaza Strip. However, in our first clip today, we did see that 48 hours ago, Israeli forces were documented in the area around Barej, in the middle of the Gaza Strip, beginning to move northwards and towards the beach. We can see the clip here of an Israeli APC moving down the street in a column. And we can see IDF forces posting up inside of buildings within the Gaza Strip as this column advances forward. We can see what appears to be rockets being fired. We can see one of the Israeli D9 Caterpillars moving through the field, most likely to conduct some special deconstructive efforts. We can see the Merkavas also advancing near the border wall seen here in the background. And we can also see infrared footage from the Israelis of a large column that appears to be besieging a Hamas outpost on the very edge of Gaza. We can now see the D9 Caterpillars, pictured right there, moving upwards in front of the column, most likely to clear the way. As far as the Israeli battle order, as far as their columns advance into combat, it does appear that the Merkavas are the lead vehicle, and once coming upon an obstacle, they are then replaced as the lead vehicle by the D9 Caterpillars, which then move ahead of the entire convoy and begin to clear the way, so that way the rest of the armor can advance more safely.
Was that a cope cage I saw on that last vehicle back there? Like, go back?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, it looks like a cope cage.
Interestingly,
on an Israeli vehicle?
Yes, interestingly enough, these things are actually starting to become a little bit more common. And really quickly, unlike other tanks like the T-90s and the T-72s that we've seen inside of Ukraine, where these have been practically useless, these may be useful. We haven't really seen it yet, but I have a little bit of a running theory that will just have to be tested in combat, so we'll have to get some video evidence to confirm this. But if I go to a Merkava Mark IV-N, which seems to be the most common version of the Merkava that's being used on the front lines right now in Israel, there's a very interesting little system mounted to the sides of the turret. And there are these little hexagonal, rectangular shaped things right here. They're called trophy systems, and what they are is a built-in defense system that will destroy any kind of an incoming missile or object that's flying towards the tank at a slightly high speed. I think it's like any speed over like 60 miles an hour or something like that. It will detonate a charge, which is almost like a shotgun spread that is aimed directly at the incoming object, which will destroy it before it hits the tank. With the cope cages being mounted almost directly atop the turret, that means that, like we see in Ukraine, the drones that try and hit the top of the turret, the weak point, which is their target, will have to fly in from the side of the tank, either the rear of the turret or the sides. And so going off of that, this thing might actually be able to work in combination with the trophy system to make this thing mostly impervious to Hamas drone attacks. Although we don't really know if it will work yet, it's largely just a theory, a tank theory, because we have absolutely no idea if the trophy system is able to destroy as slow a target as a drone, because most drones only move at, as you know, Matthew, about 30 to 40 miles an hour, and we're not really sure if that passes the speed threshold that would set off the trophy system to fire a charge at that drone and destroy it before it hits the tank.
I think some of the drones that they're sending in are those FPV type, the much faster ones. The ones you're referencing are the typical camera drone, like the DJI consumer type. Do we know if they're using the FPV in Israel?
We don't know yet. It seems as though they're using the Mavics from the video footage we got near the 7th of October when the entire war began. It appeared that Hamas was only using Mavics with bomblets or RPG shells attached under them, but we never saw FPV drones being used yet.
Interesting, interesting. So far, the Ukrainian war is the only one I've seen FPVs being used in mass. Because if they're not being used here, that means it's just the DJI drones.
And I would have to say so. I think it is just the Mavics at this point, but we'll probably see that as this goes on, the Hamas tactics will most likely develop to use FPV drones at a large scale because they're of course going to eventually start to adapt to the current situation with the tanks because the Mavic is not going to be able to destroy this tank at this point. If they did drop a bomblet, the cope cage would protect the tank. So they're going to need an FPV drone, most likely with an RPG shell attached, to fly under the cope cage and onto the roof of the tank. And then the question becomes, would the trophy system be able to stop that from happening? And we don't really know yet.
Interesting, interesting.
So with that, we're going to get back to the clip where you see the Merkava backing off. And then we can see the column then advancing in order towards the Gazan border, or actually inside of the Gazan border. It's somewhat unclear at that point. But that's the end of the clip right there. And a very interesting note to see from the middle of the Gaza Strip as Israeli forces are advancing there. Meanwhile, today we also saw that Israeli column has now been accompanied by dismounted infantry that is also fighting in the area as well. We got to see that in a clip published by the Israeli Defense Forces. We hear sporadic gunfire and shelling occurring in the distance as this Israeli squad advances forward. We can see their machine gunner laying down some fire. We see their grenadiers launching some grenades, and their D9 Caterpillar moving forward to start clearing the way for the armor.
Man, is that like that looks like a killdozer.
It didn't I gotta say, man, the D9 Caterpillars that Israel has, like, they soup these things up so much that Marvin Heemeyer would feel incompetent near one of these things. They're impressive. Also, interesting note, real quickly, is that this is actually not a Merkava Mark IV. This is a Merkava Mark III. This is a lesser seen tank at this point in the Israeli Defense Forces history. They're largely upgrading the Merkava Mark IIIs into Merkava Mark IVs, and mostly Mark IV-Ms. So this is a rare exception to the trophy system rule, because an FPV drone would actually be able to destroy this tank with relative ease, and the trophy system isn't mounted to even give it a fighting chance against an FPV drone. So just a little bit of a side note there. We can now see the Israelis stopping for a moment inside of an urban area and then continuing to advance forward. We see the Israelis taking a rest in that somewhat leveled village as they now continue to advance forward further into the strip. Artillery fire, of course, accompanying them in their advance. And that's the end of that clip, but once again showing the Israeli axis of advance in the area of Barej, and apparently it is being met with very little resistance from what we can see in the clips. It almost appears that at the moment, they're just marching in. And I have a feeling that this is most likely a calm before the storm, as the Gazan forces, well, the Hamas forces further north in Gaza, are most likely going to begin panicking that the town is being encircled, and they most likely will try and break through the Israeli lines, or attempt to break through, so that way they can reopen the highway for further supplies and munitions to reach their main forces inside of Gaza City. Moving on from that and into the northern area of the strip, we have also seen up here an IDF staging area, as it still appears that while the Israelis are committing a large amount of ground forces into the small offensive we're seeing at the moment, there is even a larger amount that is just still sitting around, waiting for the order to advance. So we can see a large staging area filmed by the IDF right here. We can see dozens of Merkava Mark IVs. It almost seems like over 100 armored personnel carriers accompanying them.
You know, I get it's a small country and there's not too many places to go, but is bunching up like this the best idea possible?
Well, it's a good question, because usually this is a disaster, especially in a place like Ukraine. The Russians would bombard a Ukrainian staging area like this if it was that close to the front, and the Ukrainians would do the same to the Russians. But in the area of the Gaza Strip, at least with the current situation that the Israelis have, this is largely okay for them to do. Although I would say that if they believe that this is going to become a larger regional conflict, which it does appear that's still on the horizon, this could be slightly unwise, especially if any nation that they're going up against has any kind of air power, or any kind of artillery, even for that matter. But for now, going up against Hamas doesn't have any kind of towed artillery or any kind of artillery that could accurately bombard the staging area, and also they don't have any air force to attack it with either. So at the moment, this is okay to do, but if it turned into a actual regional war and they started going up against enemy air power, this would not be smart, as grouping up in an area like this would lead to high vehicular losses pretty quickly. But we now see some of the vehicles staging in the columns. We can also see them observing another Israeli staging area that appears to be crammed with armored personnel carriers.
Even more bunched up.
Dude, the OCD commander, grid. That puts him in a grid. But anyways, getting back to the advancing column. We can also see some drone footage here taken near Zikim Beach, as another Israeli column is advancing down the beach. We can see another Israeli column standing by as a tank provides fire support into the distance, and then the video clip promptly ends, but showing us a little bit of the Israeli actions in the northern area of the Gaza Strip. From what we understand, these videos, and also, by the way, really quickly, operational security standards of the Israeli Defense Forces are significantly lower than those of the Ukrainian army and the Russian armed forces as well, it seems. They are more than happy to publish the exact locations of where the IDF currently is, either to try and mitigate civilian casualties or because they do not expect the Hamas to be a major threat to their forces. They really have no problem. So we know where all of these clips came from in that last bit of footage. They're coming from an area of the front line stretching from Erez all the way to the Zikim Beach out here on the shoreline of the Mediterranean. All of those clips came from that area. Of course, I'm not going to go through where each one came from, but of course you could clearly see the ones that came from Zikim Beach, as the beach was clearly seen in the video. Moving on from that, we did also see that our first footage from an Apache attack helicopter, as well as providing close air support for the forces on the ground that were moving forward at night. From what we understand, this came out 12 hours ago, so this was most likely not the current night that Israel is now leaving. It was the night before that.
How's your left ear doing?
My right ear loves this. Also, by the way, there's a couple of times where the lens flickers in this video, so if you're slightly epileptic and you're scared of that happening to you, like a seizure or anything, you might want to look away. We'll tell you when it's good to look back, because this video kind of messed with me a little bit when I watched it earlier. I'm not an epileptic or anything, just letting y'all know that, but still, it gives me a little bit of a disoriented headache. But anyways. We can see the Apache calling in Hellfire missiles to hit specific targets. We now hear them firing another Hellfire, which is aimed towards this small building here near the Gazan border. At any second, the Hellfire will impact the building. Has anyone ever said that Hellfires only travel, I think it's like 1,200 feet a second? Did anyone know that? Because they're actually incredibly slow, a lot slower than you would think, but that's why it's also taking so long for them to hit. And there it is, it finally hit. We can now hear what sounded like another Hellfire launch. And also, really quickly, while we're watching this clip, huge shout out to BC Skyman, who apparently is having their birthday today. And so, happy birthday to BC Skyman! Hey!
I was wondering if it was a hoax. I'm still waiting on confirmation from BC.
We're probably about to find out it's a hoax, but still, happy birthday in advance. And we see the next hellfire hitting the compound. We now see the helicopter move on to another target.
Hey, it is BC's birthday.
Is.
Happy
It
birthday
is
to you,
birthday.
BC.
Happy birthday to BC Skyman.
Birthday on Halloween of all days. That's a hell of a time to have a birthday, I gotta say. If you don't get cake, you get free candy.
Man, dude, that must be a great Halloween to get a cake on Halloween. That's got to be pretty good. But with that, that's the end of that clip right there. It's good to see that the Israelis are using everything they can to provide support to the troops on the ground as they begin to advance into the Strip. And moving on from that into our next clip, more so on the eastern side of the Gazan border near Beit Hanun, we got to see that the IDF was in the Strip in this area on film as well. And so here's the clip. This footage appears to have been taken from the commander's cupola of a Merkava, and now we can see an Israeli soldier's perspective as they're moving forward through Beit Hanun. We see some more footage taken from inside of Merkava, as the Israelis are now clearing out the buildings in Beit Hanun. And that's the end of the clip right there. A very brief one, but of course showing that the Israelis, as far as this video footage is concerned, do have a clear holding inside of the town of Beit Hanun. Beit Hanun is one of the first major settlements seen before we make it into the city of Gaza, or more so into the large suburb of Nazla, just further north of the city of Gaza itself. Beit Hanun is seen right here. We don't know the exact location of those Israeli forces seen on film, but nevertheless, it does appear that they have made a good leeway into this town, and it does appear that Hamas resistance must not be too strong as the Israelis are making a steady advance through the area. Moving on from that clip and on into our next one, a little bit further down in the Gaza Strip, we did see Israeli close air support continuing inside of the city of Gaza today. We can see the Israelis, of course, selecting out buildings that are allegedly Hamas sites used by Hamas to either store equipment and munitions, and also striking vehicles that are claimed to have Hamas militants inside of them. The Israeli Air Force has been putting in a large amount of work and a large amount of man-hours in trying to destroy as many Hamas sites as possible. And we can see on this clip that they have, of course, been hitting a very large amount of them over a very short amount of time. Just over the past day is when all of these clips were compiled.
Dang, man, you see that car scoot by, like, right after that bomb went off?
Yeah, that bomb went boom, and that car went, and Joe was like, I'm out of here, man. And we can see...
That car was in disbelief. It was like they just dropped a massive bomb on one dude walking down the street.
Dude, damn. That one guy, man, the bomb was heavier than the man that it hit. That's kind of a little... You know, I gotta say, the Israelis' obsession with high explosive is sometimes crazy. But, you know, it is what it is. I guess they get to respond how they want. But moving on from that and into our next little bit of news, we also saw that near the town of Sderot, some Hamas rockets were intercepted by the Iron Dome in this area. It appears that these rockets were either trying to go towards Be'er Sheva or towards the general direction of that city, maybe even towards Eilat, near the southern area of Israel, but we did get to see the interceptions on film right here. We can see the Iron Dome firing off almost all of the rockets inside of its interceptor batteries. An unbelievable amount of Iron Dome missiles. And we see all the interceptions happening just on the other side of the city. Damn, that was a lot of them. And also,
Looks like it's got a pretty good success rate because it didn't apparently hit on the ground at all.
not a single one made it through. And someone said, those are Hamas rockets. I've never seen Hamas rockets explode midair and also move around like that. Just putting that out there. Hamas rockets are pretty crude. They don't really turn too well. But we can see all of the successful interceptions just on the other side of the city. But it does appear that maybe one rocket did make it through and ended up hitting the town. Although, almost every single rocket in the Iron Dome battery was fired in that single instance. Moving on from that little bit of news and showing the continued interceptions of Hamas rockets, which are still being fired, we did see that apparently Israel is considering the future of the Strip, and it does appear that, at least at the moment, the Israeli government is ruling out annexing the Gaza Strip and largely just evicting all the Palestinians that live there. It is currently on the table that there may be a multinational or coalition governance of the Gaza Strip after Israel moves in and destroys the Hamas governance in the area. They will most likely fill in the power vacuum with a multinational force. The nations that would be involved in that force are currently not stated. We, of course, would know that Israel would be a part of that force, but we do not know if that's going to be a British-American-led force or a NATO-led force, although that would be highly unlikely, or a United Nations-led force. We're entirely uncertain at the moment, but it does appear that some kind of a multinational governance of the Gaza Strip is currently being discussed and on the table as their future. Moving on from that into one of our last clips, we also got to see the Israelis striking more Hamas forces further to the south near Han Yunis. And here's the clip of those strikes. But you see them hitting precise targets inside the buildings using much smaller munitions than we've ever seen them use. This is almost kind of bizarre because the size of the explosions are so small, they're actually pinpoint instead of just going for the whole building. Which is nice to see, because it means that they're mitigating casualties. We now apparently see some helicopter footage of an Apache maybe using Hellfire missiles.
That's wild. They're like routinely using massive bombs on like single like troops.
Yeah, it is a little weird, I would admit. It seems a little cost inefficient, but you know, they do have a budget of $20 billion a year, and I guess that's gotta speak for something, I suppose, and I bet they'll be upping it, considering the current war as well. But moving on from that, and into the city of Tel Aviv, we did get to see the Iron Dome successfully intercepting more Hamas rockets in this area as well. And so here's the clip. We can see the Iron Dome missiles being fired from their battery near the city. And Chris Cooper said, their footage is so bad, geez. And I gotta kind of admit, it's a lot worse than what we see in Ukraine. Like, the Ukrainians get 4K Ultra HD cameras, and the Israelis, with their massive military budget, they spent a lot of money on the best tech about 10 years ago, and of course, video quality has massively improved over just the last 10 years, so their video quality usually ends up being a lot worse. But anyways, moving on from that, nice to see the Iron Dome, of course, intercepting more rockets over Tel Aviv. Meanwhile, in Ramallah, a massive announcement was made. And let me just make sure that this announcement is stated the exact way it should be. The IDF struck Salah al-Aruri's safe house in Aurora village near Ramallah today. Let me pull up this man off screen, so that way I can make sure to tell y'all this man's exact position in the Hamas kind of a governance. Let's see. Salah al-Aruri is a senior leader of Hamas and a founding commander of its military wing. And it appears that he died today in this strike. So here's the clip.
Damn.
Well, that's it.
He, the grasshoppers, the ants, and everything died with that one. Now this is a legitimate question. Like, I have no idea like why they do this. Why is that phrase said every single time anything happens? Like, seriously.
I really don't know. I mean, it's said so much, it's like it kind of loses its value. You know, it's like almost like a valueless phrase because it's said everywhere. But anyways, I'd have to be honest with you, man. I'd have to declare ignorance on that because I have no idea. But y'all just saw the the senior military commander of the Hamas's militant wing just get taken out in an Israeli Air Force strike right there. And I gotta say, that's pretty damn nice. And I guess in that kind of a context right there, I guess much like the statement goes, God is good. That's what Allahu Akbar means, by the way, just in case y'all are wondering. But with that,
why would you say that if your dude just got blown up? Why would you be saying that? I mean, that doesn't make any sense.
Watches the general of your military get killed. God is good. It's like, hey, man,
I'm not even sure if they know why they're saying it at this point, because they say that for literally everything. If something good or bad happens, they're saying that.
Man, that's it, dude. You get fired from your job. The Lord be good. It's like, man, it's like it doesn't even make any sense anymore. But anyways, moving on from the West Bank, because that's all we got from the West Bank today. We did get to see in southern Lebanon that a Hezbollah munitions depot was also hit here as well. There it is. And there it goes. I love how the Israeli cameras are so low quality. They don't really record the explosion. You just get the static on the screen where the explosion happened. Oh, you see them hitting another post. And another one. Boom! But the boom. We have to come up with a new one though because it's Israel. It's like, what do we say here?
That's true.
And those are the ends of the airstrikes in southern Lebanon against Hezbollah forces there. But good to know that the Israeli Air Force is taking out the other terrorist group on the other side of Israel, on top of taking care of course, Hamas in the Gaza Strip and the Houthis in Yemen. And right now, the Israelis are actually debating what the response is going to be against the Houthi rebels in Yemen. But we have not seen them give an official statement on what they're going to be doing to them, at least over the previous while. Also, by the way, I forgot to mention this. The Houthis are also attacking the Saudi government as well at the moment. And so it does appear that in this current situation, if this does boil over into a regional war, the Saudis and the Israelis are going to be fighting side by side, most likely in a U.S.-backed coalition in the region. So good news. It appears that right now, if anything starts to happen, the Saudis are most likely going to move back into the U.S. sphere, and they're not going to be moving towards a Chinese or Russian sphere, considering that they are heavily aligned with the Iranians at the moment, and the Iranians are the ones backing the Houthis, and the Houthis are attacking the Saudis, and the Saudis and the Iranians hate each other because the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia said that the Ayatollah was an idiot, and then the Ayatollah said he was an idiot, and then the Crown Prince said, nuh-uh, Uno reverse card, you are, and then that went on for about a couple of months, and they've never really liked each other since. And that's really the best way that I can explain that whole deal. But nevertheless, that is really all of the current news that we have from inside of the Middle East. To give you all a little bit of an update on what happened in Dagestan, it seems as though the situation still has not been quelled or brought under control in Dagestan. There are large anti-Semitic lynch mobs running around inside of the area of the Caucasus Mountain region looking for ethnic Jewish people to kill, and it does appear that the Russian government is even stating that the situation is getting wildly out of hand and lawlessness is now descending upon the area. But nevertheless, we're going to be moving on from that area of Dagestan because that is a perfect segue, speaking of Russia, to move on into our Ukraine war segment. And there is a lot to cover. If y'all thought the Israeli segment was a big deal tonight, seeing everything that's going on there, y'all are going to be blown away with what's happening in Ukraine right now as well. The Ukrainians are making some very clear advances today on video and picture evidence, and have also inflicted an unbelievably high number of Russian casualties throughout the entire area of the front line, all the way from Kupyansk, the most northerly part of the active battlefield, and all the way down to Kherson, the southernly most active area of the battlefield as well, and everything in between. It's been an insane day in Ukraine. And it appears that the Ukrainian military is really putting in their best efforts. And speaking of which, Matthew, it seems as though a lot of people have been talking about it, and a lot of people have also had some questions. So what do we got, Matthew?
All right, so moving into our first question segment, we have our super chats. And first up, we have a $20 donation from Snow White, longtime channel legend. And thank you very much, Snow White, as always, for supporting the channel. And Snow White says, Enforcer, you reminded me of the movie The Accountant. And when you were shooting the pumpkins with the MG42, I could not unjam it either. And did you hear that Putin invited the U.S. president for tea?
And I did hear about that. To start off with the last part first, I did hear about Putin inviting the president for tea. We don't say the president's name ever on the stream because for some reason people go fairly and so we did hear that Putin invited the president for tea. I would not accept that. There would be polonium in the tea. I wouldn't trust it, me personally. So nah, I would take that up on that offer. But I did hear about that. Also, thank you for saying that I reminded you of The Accountant. I haven't really watched that movie, but I've heard a little bit about it, and I think I remember that the guy had like a Barrett M82, and he would shoot like watermelons or pumpkins or something out of the back of his truck with that M82. That's the only thing I remember from that movie. But nevertheless, thank you. I'll consider that a compliment, and thank you for thinking that. Also, the ammunition that was being used in that MG42 was actually the training rounds, the 308 training rounds. And I know a lot of people are going to be like, wait a minute, I thought an MG42 was 7.92 Mauser. It is, but that one isn't because it was a Franken gun. It has parts that are of an MG42, and it also is made up of parts that are an MG3. And so the actual round it's chambered in is in 308. And so the ammunition I was shooting were the plastic training rounds that were used for the MG3. But the problem is with those plastic rounds, they end up having a little bit of a frequency to jam. And of course, I ran into that problem in the midway part of that 50-round belt. But still, I couldn't unjam it either, and the guy who actually owned the machine gun had to unjam it. Nevertheless, though, super cool to shoot an MG42 or an MG3. I would heavily recommend that if you'll ever get the chance to do it, it is a once-in-a-lifetime experience, and we absolutely love that kind of stuff here. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the massive amount of support, Snow White, and helping this channel to keep on rolling. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible. And I see, Matthew, that a lot of people are missing the polls.
They're missing the polls.
They missing the polls. You see, the thing is that, to explain really quickly why we didn't have polls tonight, the thing is that the polls eat up a very high amount of time. They eat up about 40 minutes every stream, and considering that everyone behind the scenes, Matthew and me, are getting pretty exhausted, we're trying to find ways to cut down on time. If it seems, Matthew, that a lot of people want polls, we can run 2 of them, but we also want to make sure that we're cutting down on time so that way we can get off and get a little bit of sleep so that way we can keep everything running, because there is a lot going on this week. We have midterm. I just did a midterm today, which is kind of weird because it's almost the end of the semester, but apparently the midterm was today. And then there's also essays that we have to write up and everything else. So if y'all want the polls, we will throw up 2 of them if Matthew can come up with some in between now and the end of the stream. But that's why we didn't have polls at the beginning tonight, is because we're trying to start to cut back a little bit on time. But still, thank you so much once again for the support, Snow White, and helping this channel to keep on running. It is folks like you who help this channel to keep on running. We run an ad-free, sponsor-free stream, and if it wasn't for folks like you who supported this channel and helped us keep this thing rolling behind the scenes, we wouldn't be able to be here tonight. And so with that, hope that does address that well, and we are on into the next one.
All right, and our next super chat question goes to Hoodoo Texas, who puts in a $20 donation as well. And Hoodoo is a longtime channel viewer, just like Snow White. And huge shout out to you, Hoodoo, and thank you for hitting that like button as well. He says IDF uses D9 caterpillars and call them teddy bear, Israeli word doobie, very affectionately. And Caterpillar has been criticized for supplying the tractors to the Israeli by international groups. And he says, good wiki article.
Man, that takes Caterpillar power to a whole new level. Man, you sit there in your house, you just hear, and then you hear Caterpillar power, and it just starts mowing down your border wall. But I gotta say, pretty interesting to hear that it's called a doobie.
It is interesting to hear that.
Very
Doesn't that mean something else?
Yeah, it does mean something else, Andy. You know what I'm trying to get at here, you know, doobie.
Man,
we're not going any further into that. We're not going any further into that joke. But still, I got to thank you so much for the support, Hoodoo Texas, and helping this channel to keep on running, because it is folks like you who make that possible. And really cool to hear that they actually have a name for them. They call them the teddy bear. And it's kind of interesting because it doesn't look like a teddy bear. I mean, it kind of looks to me like a killdozer. It looks like the opposite of a teddy bear. But If that's what they're called, hey, we'll call them that from here forward. I'm fine with that. Or we'll call them the doobies. Like Zoink Scoob, they're whipping out the doobies. Ruh-roh Raggy, strategic fortifications destroyed. Why does that sound like Yoda? But anyways, thank you so much once again for the support, Hoodoo Texas, and helping this channel to keep on running. Because, of course, if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to be here right now. And also, by the way, we were so busy trying to get to the news tonight, I forgot to even mention the fundraiser on Sunday, because we have the final count on that fundraiser total. And let me go grab that real quick. Let me just go grab it. So let me go to my live streams. Let's go to the last one. Let me stop that right there. So, to let y'all know what the Lee Spring Army was able to do on the fundraiser this Sunday, we were able to raise $7,456 for Razom for Ukraine. That is absolutely amazing. And the reason why I had to bring that up is because I remembered that Snow White and Hoodoo Texas both threw in donations to the fundraiser, and I got to thank both of y'all and the entirety of the LSA for helping to get that fundraiser to where it was. That was a massive fundraiser and a very successful one, and of course we'll be helping to save the lives of people in Ukraine again. And we're actually about to be getting into that news here in a second, but with that, we are on to the final question of this segment, and then we're moving on into the Ukraine news. And so with that, what do we got, Matthew? While I screw up.
All right. the final super chat of the segment goes to Jose Diaz, who puts in a $20 donation. And Jose, along with Hoodoo and Snow White, is another longtime channel viewer. And huge shout out to you, Jose, for that support. And he says, thanks to the Enforcer Matt and all of our LSA brothers and sisters for the continued support for Ukraine and Israel. And Puerto Rico loves Ukraine, Israel, and the free world.
And I got to thank you so much for the massive amount of support, Jose, and helping the channel to keep on running. And also, thank you so much for enjoying our never-ending commitment to the good causes around the world. Of course, trying to fight the evil that there is, which is the Russian-Chinese-backed coalition that involves the Iranians and a whole bunch of other countries like North Korea. It means a lot to us that a whole bunch of people appreciate the way we cover the news, and of course find it worthwhile enough to support us, to help us to be able to do this as a job. Because if it wasn't for folks like y'all that were able to support us and keep us rolling every single night, we wouldn't be able to cover the news the way we do. And I've got to say that I'm completely honored, Jose Diaz, that you find this channel worthwhile enough and find our coverage to be good enough that we are worthwhile to support and to help to keep the news rolling. And thank you so much once again for being the commandant of Puerto Rico in the Lee Spring Army. You are our Puerto Rican LSA viewer. There are others, but you are the Puerto Rican Lee Spring Army viewer. And I got to thank you so much once again for being here with us tonight and supporting this channel so that way we can keep this thing rolling. And so with that, thank you so much once again. And thank you for the kind words as well. And with that, it is now time for us to move on into the Ukraine war news, starting off with our breaking news today near the area of Avdiivka. Over the past 24 hours, or really over the past 48 hours, it does appear that Russian forces were not able to advance at all. We did not get a frontline update for today showing that the front lines must have been inactive for the most part, but over the past 24 hours, there has been absolutely no frontline advance. That is not because of a Russian failure to conduct an offensive. An offensive is being conducted, but the losses have been drastically high, and they've not been able to gain an inch of ground because of it. Starting off with our first clip, we got to see a little interesting picture near Avdiivka of a quiet road covered in fog and kind of a gloomy day, with just a single destroyed Zil sitting on the side of the road with the Ukrainian flag waving over it, of course showing that the Ukrainians still control the area. But really, just a really eerie picture to start off the battlefield with. And moving on into the actual losses that the Russians took today, we did get to see that Russians in the north were hit in this area, most likely near Klishkivka. Oh yeah. Oh,
rock it out.
Oh yeah. Bum, 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 bum. You know, wait a minute, hang on. Hold up. You know, that has the exact same tone, beat to it as the Chia Pet song. The Chia. It's the same.
Dang, man, how you got that out of that mess of a song? Jeez.
Well, I'm a little bit of a musical boy. So, what do you mean, Jack? What do you mean? This burning BMP doesn't sound like a song to you? Well, do a push-up, fatty. But anyways, we can see the BMP roasting and absolutely on fire. Oh, and we had a tiny turret toss. And now we see them dropping a bomblet onto a T-72B. A T-72B3? Yeah, it looks like it. And we can see the ammo going up. A nice little drone hit, of course. And this tank, it will be written off as a loss. And everyone is saying that that song was written by a Rammstein. And hey, by the way, I heard that Zelensky is going to be going to another Rammstein here in the future. So hopefully he gets to hear that kind of music, which is apparently their theme song. But we can see another tank. Well, actually, it's the same one. Still burning in the field. And that fire has ravaged that tank so thoroughly, it will never be used again. And so with that, wow. So with that, we're going to be moving on from that clip and into our next one near Avdiivka, where we got to see the flashes of the battle coming from the fields of Avdiivka. This was filmed from the city of Donetsk, which is currently in Russian-occupied territory, but they could see the flashes of the shells firing off in the distance as the battle was fought. That's the end of the clip, but of course you can hear just the severity of the battle going on in the distance, and specifically the amount of artillery being used. Moving on from that clip and into the next one, we also got to see that one of the TOS-1s that the Russians had moved into the area was destroyed by a Ukrainian unit, which led to a cook-off. But you see the TOS moving through the fields solemnly and on its own.
The TOS thermobaric missile system is a very solitary creature, preferring to travel through the wide open expanses alone. This, of course, doesn't prevent it from being the victim of a perilous Ukrainian attack. Here we can see the Ukrainian bird of prey lunging on its target, hitting the very top of the vehicle and sending it into a roaring inferno. The TOS begins to sputter, much like some kind of a spastic who just realized that they had been penalized for their faulty actions in the race and is now beginning to fume, steam, and then burn. We can see the thermobaric rockets exploding inside of their silos on top of the vehicle, most likely causing the crew a very unpleasant time breathing. I guess this Russian TOS can be summarized as being an absolute tosser.
Oh my.
Oh my.
Oh, but that's the end of that little toss right there. And moving on from that and into our next clip, which was actually a little bit behind the lines, we got to see a Ukrainian BMP-1 in pictures. And I gotta say, this one was really cool. And really, it's just because of the paint job. It's a NATO tricolor SARC camo pattern. We've never really seen this on a BMP before, and I just thought it was pretty unique. But nevertheless, it's just a BMP in the area. The camouflage was really neat. I thought I'd show it to y'all just for that. But moving on from that and behind the lines, we also did see that some of that artillery that was being fired in the area around Avdiivka wasn't just a part of the battle there. No. It was a part of a larger Ukrainian plan to try and damage Russian logistics, which are most likely fueling the Russian units near Avdiivka. And this was a very interesting little clip right here. The original clip says that it's an ammo detonation. And I'll be showing y'all this right here. It's a little fire out there at the distance in Donetsk. Oh my. Like, zoink, something's on fire. There's no lead. But anyways, graphite. But moving on from that, we actually got a close-up view of what's burning. And Matthew, it's not what you think. It's tanker cars in the rail yard that are on fire and burning out of control. Apparently, the Ukrainians were able to hit down onto the supply yard in this area and were able to do a little bit of damage to it, burning up the fuel that's most likely running the Russian army out at Avdiivka, or at least some of it.
Да, горят цистерны. и, видимо, не одна.
That's the end of that clip right there. Of course, absolutely wonderful to see. And moving on from that little clip in the area of Avdiivka, and moving on out of this area for the moment, it does appear that the Russian forces in Avdiivka have once again met with disaster today, suffering incredibly high losses and gaining absolutely no ground. If we see the Russian offensive continue on like this, we're assuming that their rate of the offensive will eventually peter out. It's mostly petered out compared to what they were doing in the first few days already, but the offensive is still technically going on a little bit. So with that in mind, we're now going to be moving on from the Avdiivka area, and we're going to be moving on down into the area of the liberated grounds on the left bank of the Dnipro River, which is why our title says Ukraine Liberation. You see, the problem nowadays with our titles is that we have to try and fit in both news segments into the title at one time. And this is leading a lot of people to say silly things like clickbait, like I have room to just write a book for the title. I find that quite silly, and we're trying our best to tell y'all what's going on. And so, moving on from that, I'm going to tell y'all what's going on. The Ukrainians have been able to liberate practically the entire chain of villages, and we're going to be updating the front line for this at the moment. So let me move on down here, and let's do that. To about right here. This is about what the Ukrainian front line looks like on the left bank of the Dnipro River at this point from what we understand. The Ukrainians control most of the delta on this side, and they also have been able to take control of Kazachi Lahari and the small village of Krinky. And I gotta say, very cranky. And they were able to raise the flag over both of them on video. And so here's the first clip of a Ukrainian force taking the village of Krinka or Krinky. Either way you want to call it.
Восьмий день непосильної праці. Скільки крові, скільки поту. Не без втрат, звісно, да. Ми згодні, що це війна. Нам тяжко. Ми хочемо їсти, хочемо пити, хочемо додому, хочемо бачити рідних, але ми стоїмо, а також двигаємося вперед. Двигаємося, щоб загнати цього ворога до себе туди в будку. Ми любимо свою країну. Що я вам скажу, хлопці? Слава Україні, слава морській піхоті! Героям слава!
Very nice.
That guy down there was dedicated as hell. I know his arm was tired holding that gun down there on the right, like perfectly straight like that. Yeah, he yelled it perfectly straight the whole time, not a flinch.
Dude, that guy is sitting there at the end of this clip, and he's going, man, please let me put this thing down. He's probably like that. Dude, he really didn't, man. He didn't move that thing an inch. Like, this guy over here, he's actually kind of wagging his rifle around just a little bit. This guy, though, this guy's got an arm of steel, man, to be able to hold that thing like that. But it does look like he's got the stock propped under his arm, so maybe that's helping. But still, huge respect. Arms of steel. Moving on from that, great to see that they are able to liberate the village of Krinky today. And moving on into the area of Kazachi Lahari, we also saw the flag completely raised in this town, indicating that the Ukrainians were able to take it. We're going to be muting the music, but we see the Ukrainians setting up a little bit of a ladder, and then climbing up the building to raise the Ukrainian blue and yellow banner atop the building. Gotta say, absolutely beautiful, Governor, and I love to see it. It's wonderful to see the Ukrainians, of course, clearly liberating villages on the left bank of the Dnipro River, because they are opening up a potential area for further offensives. It does appear at the moment that there's no major offensive going on in this area. It's smaller company to battalion level actions, but they are still making some ground and clearing the way, at least for a Ukrainian foothold in the future. And going off of that, it may be showing that there's a larger Ukrainian plan for this area, or it's a distraction, one or the other. Nevertheless, still great things to see. Moving on from that, and into our location unknowns, we got to see in one of our first clips, a rare use of a detached 240mm mortar. Many of y'all may remember these as the Tulpan heavy mortar system, which is usually mounted onto a vehicle. This is one of the rare times we've seen the 240mm mortar just being set up like it is a conventional mortar, which is just insane to see. But here's the clip. And we're going to be muting the sci-fi music or whatever that is, but you see them here having set up the mortar. And it appears, I think they're about to fire it, and they did. And it's fired. And that's the end of the clip. But really quickly, I would like to note that this truck right here appears it's about to tip over. The weight of the small crane seems that it's already so heavy, this thing is about to tip over into the mud. And
It
so,
does look like it's about to tip over. Like, I was wondering what you were waiting for comment for on that one.
yeah, I was like, oh, okay. But with that, we're going to be moving on from that clip and on to the next one, where we got to see some Ukrainian Su-25s firing off some Roketa. Here's the clip. Oh, we're muting that. But you see a 2S1 over there in the corner, and here comes the Su-25s. And there they go. There goes the rockets. And let me make a sound effect for the next Su-25. As a TIE fighter. But anyways, that's the end of the clip. Great to see that they were able to fire off the rockets, and wonderful to see that the Ukrainian Air Force is still out there putting in the work and putting in the hours and taking what's ours. Moving on from that and into the next clip, we also got to see something very nice. If y'all didn't know, America has kind of gotten a little pissed off at Iran. I think that's kind of clear, especially with what's been going on in the Middle East, and we just got done covering that. And the U.S. actually seized a shipment of munitions that were supposed to be going to Iran that were on board a ship a little while ago. We've actually ended up sending those munitions to Ukraine, and now the Ukrainians are using Iranian shells against the Russians. What do you know? Isn't that nice? Ukrainian artillerymen crews unpack 122mm Iranian-made shells provided by the U.S. And look at that. The Iranian ammunition was intercepted by the United States during raids to prevent arms smuggling to Yemen. The Houthis. The U.S.
What did the Russians say? What did the Russians say when they get hit by one of these shells from Iran?
What?
They say Iran.
Man. Bro, dude, that's a good one, man. I like it. I like that one.
Man, did you even get it?
Man, no, I didn't. But it's a good one.
I know.
But that's the end of the clip right there. Just giving you all a little bit of an insight. But great to see that they were able to use some Iranian shells. And moving on from that, we're going to be seeing our next clip here. And this one's a good one. Oh!
Oh, let's go,
two Bobcats! And most importantly, Matthew, look at the infantry losses.
All the losses are high again. They're keeping them consistently high. They even got 2 cruise missiles. That's a good day.
But Matthew, look at the maps. Look at the maps. Look how many soldiers they lost today. And look at that total. Something big happened today.
They cost the 300,000 Thrushmark, did they, brother?
Yes, they did, brother. They've lost a whole bunch of them. But 300,000 Russian soldiers have been taken out in this war so far. An absolutely behemoth of a number. And when you really think about it, this war has been a complete loss of life to an astronomical scale for the Russian army. 300,000 Russian soldiers are dead. Just to put that into context, that was the pre-war size of the entire Ukrainian armed forces that now lie dead in the fields of Ukraine just on the Russian side alone. This war has ended up being an absolute catastrophic failure for the Russians, and even today, just on a daily basis, it is showing. With 870 Russian soldiers lost in just the past 24 hours, along with 29 armored personnel carriers being destroyed, 35 supply trucks, 21 tanks, 25 artillery pieces, 21 drones, 10 MLRSs, 2 cruise missiles, 3 anti-aircraft warfare systems, and of course the 2 Bobcat skid steers. All in all, today was a very high loss day for the Russians, and showing that the offensive in the area of Avdiivka as well as Kupyansk have been going very poorly and have resulted in massively high losses for the Russians today. Moving on from the casualty report into the next area of a failed Russian attack today, we did get to see that a Russian convoy advancing towards Ukrainian positions was destroyed in the Kupyansk region today as well. And here's the clip. What the hell was that?
Sound like something, shotgun or something.
Dude, you know what it actually sounded like? It sounded like it's Christmas and you're cracking the nuts. Anyone want a chestnut? Yeah, sure. But you see the Russian column advancing.
You're supposed to roast those on open fire. I don't think you're supposed to crack those.
Man, you know what I'm going to be cracking? Some lame-ass jokes. But we can see the Russian column. Man, call these jokes raw, the way they be hitting badly and getting condemned by the damn food inspector. But anyways, we can see the Ukrainian artillery raining down on this Russian column as it's advancing through the open fields in the area. And we see one of them got hit, and it's been knocked out, and it's burning, and churning, and turning, and everything else. And Derek said, so is the U.S. really over there now? Yeah, man. What do you think we do? Lie on our titles? You'll be hearing about that from everyone else tomorrow. But we can see the Russians getting blown up in the meantime near Kupyansk. And look at it. Another vehicle knocked out. This column is withering down to almost nothing already. And guess what, y'all? It's not over. Another one. Man, we need DJ Khaled in here right now. We the best! Oh, and it hit another one. Man, this thing keeps on trucking, though. The other guy, though, he turned around. He's leaving.
He's probably smart for that.
He's probably smart. And now it's run over the third mine.
Achtung, die Minen.
Achtung, Minen! Wait, hang on. We need Arnold in here for that, Matthew. No, there's a landmine. No.
Man, Arnold sounding a little funny these days. He all right?
No, the steroids, they're getting to me.
Is that you, Arnold?
No, it's not. I'm not here.
But we can see the Russians leaving the field now. We can see this one driving away into the sunset. And the sun's going to set on it, all right. Check this out. Poof, and it's done for. Even leaving the field, the Russians get no respect. Oh, man, I'm telling you. I don't know what's up, but I'm hitting every voice under the sun tonight. I hope y'all are enjoying it, because that's actually a bit of a rarity these days. But with that, that's the end of the clip. Wonderful to see a large amount of Russian vehicles being destroyed in Kupyansk. And moving on from that, and further down the line and into the area of Zalaman and Krasnoyarchinsk, we got to see a T-90 get blown up by a drone today. Epic intro. Okay. Good lord, man! What the hell? We're going to mute that because it sounds like the ESPN music's playing, and the drone flies right into the engine bay of the T-90. Whoa!
Oh,
Dude, that was quick. That was quick. And we get an instant replay, and it's up in flames. Wow! Call that tank Spocky. But great to see.
I call that thing Oppenheimer. It's going up like the bomb, man.
Man, we need to get new material. That's what I was thinking about that. I was like I was going to do the Oppenheimer joke, and I was like, nah, man, we've done that like 100 times. And then you did the Oppenheimer joke, and I was like, damn. We have like one joke when things blow up now, and it's just that one. We've got to come up with something new.
Man, the bomb jokes are kind of scarce. Like, yeah, not too many people are creating new bomb jokes. I'm not sure if that's like a really big market right now.
Man, yeah, you know what? I'm not even going to do a joke on that. We're just going to move on. Moving on from that and into Kremena, we got to see a doomed VDV expedition, and it was filmed nearly from start to finish. This is a Russian film, by the way. So, of course, it's posed like it's a victory, but we can already tell that from the very start, things went poorly. You can see them looking around, and we can see them walking up to the friend and going, I wasn't paid for the display. We see this guy chit-chatting. You see him walking back. Huh. Pizdik.
They say what?
Pizdik. That means idiot in Russian.
Oh, bleed.
Oh my. We see them trying to move across the railroad tracks. Little do these guys know they're about to get railroaded by Ukrainian reconnaissance here in just a second. We're trying, y'all. One day I will be a father and my kids will hate me for these jokes. But we can see them now hopping across the railroad tracks and scooting. And you now see the rest of his VDV squad here. They're crouching along the road. Oh, a little bit of gunfire. They've been spotted. Uh-oh. My man be giving him a heart attack. Dude, this guy.
Here, let me shoot next to your ear.
Hey, comrade, guess what? What? Here's some hearing problems. Pop. Look at him. He turned around like, what's wrong with you, man? And then he gets up and starts running away. Now we see him running back. We're getting a little into it, starting to scream a little bit, but they are, of course, falling back.
This dude is dangerous as hell that's shooting this gun right now.
Yeah, he is. This guy believes in trying to create a casualty somehow, some way. They can't come off the front lines empty-handed. Did this guy just say Opa? He did! Dude, that's like the Russian equivalent of OG. Like, OG, mister. That's like their equivalent of that is going Opa. So you got this paratrooper here, firing over everyone's heads, nearly killing all of his friends, and then he goes, oh, gee, mister. And then he just starts looking around. What a goof. Man, they scooting. They really are.
Hurry up, guys. Run quick. We gotta make it look even more fake.
Quick, everyone. The Ukrainians might actually show up. We need to leave. Okay. Dude, their little run. It's like people who don't run. Like, it's not a sprint, but it's also not really a run. It's kind of like a speed walk.
This guy filming's like,
We gotta have at least one casualty bleed to make it look more real. Who's gonna take the fall?
Dude, you come back from a Russian mission in the VDV. Hey, look, we took no casualties. The squad leader hears that and pulls out a pistol and just shoots someone in the leg so that way they have something to report back.
Oh, bleed. He was killed by unfriendly fire, not friendly.
He was killed by the most unfriendly fire. I said, screw you, asshole, when I shot him, so it made it unfriendly. So this entire montage was just them retreating. That was the whole video. But moving on from that, y'all now get to see what the Russians are really about. We're now going to be moving on from that doomed VDV expedition and on down into the area of Bakhmut, near Avdiivka, where we got to see some heavy fighting today. Of course, conducted by your favorite Ukrainian soldiers. Check it out.
those some nice bassy, like gunshots.
Oh.
Oh, wow.
Man, this is a crazy firefight here.
Is this guy wounded that's filming right now?
Nah, he good. He good, fam. When you see the YPR over here providing a little bit of fire support.
Tactical bass, блядь, said MGP.
Tactical bass. I like that. Dude, tactical bass deployed. It's literally like a smallmouth bass with like a little operator hat and a headset. You know, it swims up to you in the air. But anyways, moving on from that, we're now moving on to our next clip where we also got to see the 3rd Brigade continuing on its fight in another area of the southern flank of Bakhmut. We see them already in high spirits. Love to see it. Showing off the front line position and the tree line. We hear a round explode right behind their position, a Russian shell that just missed them. We now see them trying to shoot down a drone. We can't really see it, but they can. And then they go back to kidding around. And then another shell lands, missing them again, but very close. My man here, I don't know what he was doing, but he went.
He's coursing through the Kermit. There's the spirit of Kermit, блядь.
He's about to go, that was a little bit of a close one, huh? But anyways. Still in good spirits. They're still keeping it up. Very respectable. But a little fire broke out right outside their trench from the last explosion.
Прийняли, плюс у мене... блядь, ГПшечка заряджена. Сука, гаряча. Якщо що, то буду цинкувати. FPV, мужики, FPV!
Seems as though they're firing in another drone.
Вон, полетел.
Oh, there he goes. Damn, that thing was going fast.
That one's booking it.
Man, that one literally went... Meow.
Блядь!
And it looks like it got blown up.
Слава богу, блядь.
More shells are landing around them, but they're still holding their ground. Holding strong.
Сказал бы, что не нравится, но что-то в этом есть. Как тебе обстановка? Огонь. Да. Самое подходящее слово.
See artillery landing all around, but the Ukrainians are moving through the tree line. It appears they're trying to reposition to give themselves better chances to get through the barrage. Now see them exchanging some fire with Russian infantry that have apparently moved forward. Oh, damn. Oh, my God. Dude, this guy's reaction was completely warranted. Listen to this.
He said, go to leg.
Dude, that guy sat there and he saw the thing coming up and he said, I don't know what to do. Dude, that would have been
spawned
me.
into Walmart and started yodeling.
I don't decide. I'm going to admit, I would have pissed my pants a little bit with a 13-ton APC coming at me like that. I mean, that thing was really kicking it. I mean, I would have been scared to death that it would have run me over. But we now see the reinforcements dismounting. And we now see this squad piling in to get on out of there. Their replacements have arrived. And now the door is closing, and they're out of there. That was the end of the day for them, but got to give them a lot of credit. They went through a lot that day, and then it almost looked like they got run over by the APC that was there to pick them up. But still, great to see that they were able to make it out. And moving on from that clip and into the next one, we also got to see another Russian tank hit behind the lines by a smart round, apparently donated by the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. Check it out. Ooh!
That bomb real smart. It hit the right target every time.
Oh! No.
Oh, and the raid music, too. It comes with it. It's a free feature.
Dude, Russian tank just catches on fire. The sound of the rave music just grows louder with each second. But anyways, moving on from that and out of the area of Bakhmut. Wonderful to see that the Ukrainians are, of course, fighting hard in Bakhmut. And hopefully, and let me really quickly show you all this because the front line had not updated at that point yet. Let's see if they made any ground. Nah, it just appears largely just fighting. Did they make any in the northern? No, they didn't make any there either. So largely just fighting today. Of course, the Ukrainians trying to soften the Russians up. But beyond that, they're doing really good. Moving on from that clip and into the next one near Marinka, we also get to see the Russians getting hit hard down here. Check it out. Well, let me just give a little bit of a a little bit of context to this. This is the 1251st Battalion, I believe, of some brigade. I forgot the exact name of the brigade, but this is a camp that they were in. It got stricken, and right now the Russians are claiming, the pro-Russian mill bloggers, that at least 120 Russian soldiers died in this camp after it was attacked. So a pretty high number, probably a large part of where the casualties came from today. But here's the clip. Man, ammo cooking off so good, it almost sounds like a firefight. Moving on from that clip, nice to see that the Ukrainians were able to pull off a wildly successful artillery strike today. And moving on into the area of the village chain in the south, which, by the way, was largely an inactive front today, we did get to see a little bit of a PT-91 Twardy in action near the area of the village chain. These are heavily upgraded Polish variants of the T-72 main battle tank, and it's really neat to see these things in service. The Ukrainians have, I believe, around 200 of these things that were provided by Poland, and wonderful to see one of them here near Velika, Novosilka. Moving on,
you know, these tanks right here are never late. It's called the Twardy. They're never Twardy to the battlefield, they say on this one.
Man, that's a dude. Man, when you deal with this thing, you go, man, are you on time? I'm never Twardy. Wait, no, dude. Mike Tyson was the guy who named this tank. He sat there and said, "Man, give that pigeon a kiss." And then they said, "Mr. Tyson," he said, "Yes." And he said, "What do you want to name this tank?" Is it always on time? Yeah, Twardy. What? Twardy. With that, moving on from the PT-91.
And nobody said a word because they didn't want Crazy Mike to come down hard on them. So everybody just went with it.
Everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth. But moving on from that, if you don't like what I'm saying, turn off your station. But moving on into the area for Volvate, we did get to see an MRAP hit a mine. The crew survived, but the tire is lost. Like in the clip, they're saying they don't even know where the tire went. It's in space, most likely.
Коротше, в радіусі то, що можна побачити туди в кусти, колеса просто не видно. От слова зовсім нема ніде колеса. Не знаю вообще взагалі, де воно могло, даже куди полетіти.
And well,
that ground is wet.
That ground is mushy. Man, that ground is mushier than mushy peas. Also, Matthew, I like how this guy was looking into the wheel well at the start of the video like it was in there somewhere. He's like, maybe it's in here. You know,
oh, hello? Are you in there somewhere, Will? Hello?
Dude, he looked down there and he went, "Oh, hello there." And then nothing came back. And he's like, "Oh." But anyways, that's the end of that clip. Moving on to the next one, near Dnipro, Kupyansk. We got to see the 47th Magura Brigade knock out some Russian vehicles, including the UR-77 Meteorite and also the command version of an MTLB. There's the command MTLB. Very commanding presence on the battlefield, which of course makes it a #1 targeta for Roketa.
Is that trash or people stacked around this deal?
Good question, Matthew. I'm not going to answer that, Matthew. I think that might give you the answer, but I don't think we can answer that here on the live, if you know what I mean. I would love to give you an answer, though, but I can't. But we can see the meteor.
Like the FBI or something. You can't confirm or deny. Like this is getting all technical and government-like up in here.
Man, well, I would love to confirm or deny, but at the moment I can't. What am I being arrested for? You'll hear that when you get to the station. What am I being arrested for? You know, like those clips, Matthew.
Yes.
I didn't do nothing. But anyways, we can see the system burning up. Ooh, look at that.
Oh, like a flamethrower.
A flamethrower out of the rear end. Oh! Shockwave. There was a visible
Something
shockwave.
went firing off. Did you see it?
Man, this thing absolutely blew up. It was viral. And look at that shockwave. Dang.
There was something going crazy out there to the left.
Out to the left? Where?
Did you see that thing go flying off?
I didn't see
Watch,
nothing.
you'll see. Watch, it's going to go.
Oh, that! Oh, it was a piece of metal.
Oh.
Oh.
Metal.
Oh, what? I guess we got the answer to that. Oh, man. Oh, I don't know. I can't do the high-pitched voices anymore. Apparently, my voice just can't do it. But there's the skirting piece of metal across the ground. And that's all that's left. A burning crater. And there's
this horse has got some teethies on
it. man, this horsey is going. it's a little bit mean. But that's the end of that clip.
That horse, you gonna nip off your arm with the front teeth.
Man, this horse right here, man, this thing's ready for Halloween. This thing comes up to your door, man, and with those kinds of teeth, it goes Thick 3. But anyways.
Oh my.
Oh my. Oh man, wait, hang on. There's gotta be some other jokes we can make about this. I'm gonna try and force myself to make one I can't. I don't have a joke at the moment on that anymore, but still. Circuit 3. But moving on from that and out of the area, we're now going to be quickly moving down into the Crimean Oblast, because we saw here some footage that had been put out by Radio Free Europe from satellite pictures showing that the Russians are starting to build up some pretty sizable air defenses in the area of Chornomorsk, which is on the far western side of the Crimean Peninsula. And it's showing that they may be preparing to fall back, because the only reason they would be building up air defense positions like these is if they're going to be using them in the future, and that's most likely because they may be falling back. But that's the end of the clip, just showing the SAM sites being built, and something very interesting to observe. That happened just over the past 24 hours. Moving on from that, it's now time for us to move up to Kyiv to cover the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky here on day 615 of the war. And so, here is the speech.
Give me speech. Speech.
Speech.
Oh, make sure it's all good speech.
Speech.
Бажаю здоров'я, шановні українці, українки. Сьогодні було кілька важливих подій. Перша ставка. Сьогодні Міжнародний день Чорного моря, спеціальний день, присвячений нашому регіону, нашій спільній з партнерами акваторії. На ставці першим питанням розглядали саме це – роботу наших експортних коридорів, захист півдня України, наших міст, наших портів від російських атак. Все це має значення не лише для нашої держави, не лише для безпеки України, а значно ширше. І за час повномасштабної війни ми це довели, що коли Україна разом з партнерами повертає безпеку Чорному морю, світ отримує як дивіденди більше безпеки для інших регіонів. Починаючи від продовольчої безпеки і закінчуючи безпекою соціальною, бо від стабільності ринку продовольства залежить і політична стабільність багатьох країн в складних регіонах, в Африці і в Азії. Дуже важливо, що завдяки українській сміливості вдається фактично вигнати російський флот за межі східної частини Чорного моря. Росія не може використовувати наше море для поширення своєї агресії в інші частини світу, як це було із Сирією. Тоді, коли Росія вклалась в гуманітарну катастрофу на території Сирії, використовуючи Чорне море як свою базу, а згодом і наш Крим як плацдарм для дій російських військових. Тепер ситуація змінилась, принципово змінилась. І коли ми додамо ще більше безпеки Чорному морю, Росія втратить будь-які можливості домінувати в цій акваторії і розповсюджувати свій вплив, свою деструктивність в інші країни. Чим більше захисту у нашому узбережжя, у нашого моря, тим більше захисту у світу. Сьогодні на ставці доповідала командувач ВМС, керівник ГУР, керівник СБУ, саме щодо наших дій на півдні та на морі, головком, командувачі напрямків. Вдячний усім нашим людям, які залучені до відповідної роботи за те, що Україна стає потужніше на відповідних напрямках. Звичайно, ми проаналізували події на фронті в усіх ключових точках: Авдіївка, Мар'їнка, Куп'янськ, Лиманський напрямок, Південь. Хлопці, дякую вам за сьогоднішній день. Були на ставці доповіді міністра оборони та міністра стратегічної промисловості щодо снарядів і техніки. Ми збільшуємо наше виробництво і готуємо нові оборонні пакети від партнерів. Провів сьогодні особливу церемонію вручення державних нагород саме тим нашим воїнам, які збільшують українську силу в битві за море. Воїни ВМС та прикордонники, які дають захист нашій акваторії. Воїни ГУР та СБУ, інженери, які роблять нашу нову зброю, наші морські дрони, забезпечують її функціонування. Це всі хлопці, яких відкрито не покажеш. Імена не прив'яжеш до конкретних подій. Поки що. Поки війна ще триває. Але вони дійсно заслуговують на вдячність держави і людей. Я подякував їм від усіх українців. Провів нараду підготовчу щодо нашої роботи з Європейським Союзом. Одна з ключових політичних цілей України на завершення цього року – це наша готовність до відкриття переговорів щодо членства в Європейському Союзі. Всі рівні держави мають бути готовими до цього. і будуть. Очікуємо аналогічної готовності від європейських інституцій. Ми чітко розуміємо пріоритети, ми готуємо наші кроки. Говорив з прем'єр-міністром Болгарії Денковим. Фактично про все, що є змістом цього дня, цього часу для України. Вдячний Болгарії за підтримку нашого руху в Євросоюз, за нашу дуже плідну партнерську співпрацю саме в Чорному морі, в торгівлі, в безпеці. Важливо, що домовленості, яких ми досягли під час мого візиту в Болгарію, повністю виконуються. Обговорили і наші додаткові безпекові можливості. Сучасний світ так влаштований, що звикає надто швидко до успіхів. Коли почалась повномасштабна агресія, багато хто у світі очікував, що Україна не вистоїть. Тепер сприймаються вже просто як даність колосальні речі, які роблять наші люди, всі наші воїни. Успіх України в битві за Чорне море – це те, що буде в підручниках історії, хоч і не так часто обговорюється зараз. Але, щоб там не було, нам робити своє, захищати свою державу, українську незалежність, наше життя, нашу культуру, українську свободу, і ми захистимо. Я дякую усім у світі, хто допомагає Україні. Слава кожному нашому воїну. Слава усім, хто не відступає, не вигорів, хто вірить в Україну так само, як 24 лютого, і так само б'ється заради України, хто дбає про Україну кожного дня. Додавати сили нашій державі, тільки це потрібно. Слава Україні!
And with that, that is the end of the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky here on the 615th day of the war. And that begins the next part of the stream. We're about to be going on into some of the fun parts where we get to talk to each and every single one of y'all. We get to talk about polls, if we ran any. I don't know if we did. And I don't know what the poll results really were on the poll that asked about the polls. But we will be addressing questions from all of y'all, both in the super chats and live chats as well. And so that, what do we got, Matthew?
All right, and we did run that one poll about the polls, and it looks like about 55% of you said that you wanted the polls, and I forgot the other number, but whatever the math is on that one said no. So 55% said yes, so the majority is a go for the polls. So we will restart the polls again tomorrow night. But with that being said, we are moving on back into our super chat questions. And up first, we have a very generous $50 donation from BC Skyman, who's a longtime channel viewer. And thank you very much, BC, for that support.
And happy birthday.
That is his second, I think it's his second support of the night, I think. I'm pretty sure. But BC already left for the night, but once again, happy birthday to BC as well. Like we said before, his birthday is on Halloween of all days. So that is definitely interesting to say the least. But thank you very much, BC. And he says, we must call our representatives and demand continued support of Ukraine and Israel. An awesome job.
And thank you so much for the massive amount of support, BC Skyman, and helping this channel to keep on running through and through. You've been here forever, and I got to thank you so much once again for helping to keep the channel running tonight. And I would completely agree. I think that representatives should be called and should be lobbied to continue support, not for one or the other, but for both. Y'all know that here in the Lee Spring Army, we believe in the saying, have the cake and eat it too. That may or may not make sense, but we're going to live by that quote, dang it, and we're going to live by it hardcore. So make sure to call up your representatives and tell them to support Ukraine and Israel. Because you have to remember, everyone, America didn't give up on Japan and just fight Nazi Germany in World War II, and we didn't give up on Germany and just fight Japan during World War II either. No. We fought them both at the same time, and we ended up winning against both of them nearly at the same time. And going off of that, who's to say that we can't do the same thing again, supporting Israel and Ukraine? So I would say make sure to lobby your politicians, whoever they may be, and have them continue support for Israel and Ukraine both simultaneously. Because the more support that goes to the both of them, the better we go at fighting this axis of evil that now exists in the world. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the massive amount of support, BC Skyman. You may not be here right now, but I hope you get to hear this tomorrow because you are a legend. And I hope you had an amazing birthday today, and I hope that you continue to have many more amazing birthdays in the future. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that did address that well, and y'all make sure to call up your representatives. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Steve T, who puts in a $20 donation, and thank you very much as well, Steve, for that support. And he says, Israel is like me. I can spend lots for fewer, bigger fireworks, or I can get lots of cheap sparklers. And I say, take my money. How big? And just think like a non-lawyer.
And I thank you for the support. Interesting way to look at that. And I gotta say, you got a very interesting way of looking at things. You believe in the biggest thing for any job. You got a tree stump that has to be pulled, pull out the 18-wheeler. You've got your child's first tooth is falling out, pull out the 18-wheeler. Tie that little tooth to the trailer hitch. You see someone in trouble, you see an old lady having to cross the street, tie her ankles up to the back of the 18-wheeler and drag her across the street. And I gotta say, thank you for the support. Also, I'm just kidding with you, Steve. I completely get what you're saying. And it is very interesting to see that Israel, when given the option, just uses the largest bomb for every job. I have to admit that is a little bit weird, because most countries, especially the United States, is just so psychotic. Like, it's almost psychotic. Like, to the point that we obsess with having the right tool for just the right job. Like, you know, if it's one guy, hit him with a Hellfire. If it's an entire base, hit it with a JDAM. That's kind of our mindset, and it's very rare that you ever see us just use JDAMs for everything, unless if there are wadis in the middle of Afghanistan. Then we use JDAMs on everything. But beyond that, we hardly ever do that, and it's really weird to see Israel doing that, because you look at it and you're like, damn, that's got to cost a lot of money. You know, it's not that, you know, it's like lame or anything. It's amazing to see a 2,000-pound JDAM blow up on something, but still, that's got to be expensive to do that for every single target, including just individual guys. But nevertheless, they're doing it, and I got to say, going over that kind of logic, Steve, I can understand why. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And thank you for throwing in just think like a non-lawyer, because I don't really think like a lawyer. I don't think, at least. I would hope that I don't. No shade to any attorneys out there, but I'd hope that I don't. But still, thank you so much once again for the support, Steve, and helping this channel to keep on running, because it is folks like you who help to make this thing possible. And if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to keep this thing running. And so thank you so much once again. And we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Drunky Monkey, who puts in a 20 Australian donation. And huge shout out to you, Drunky Monkey, for that support. He says, yo, can we see a drunk Russian in ambulance, please?
Drunk Russian in ambulance? Let me see if I can pull that up. Drunk Russian in ambulance. Drunk Russian guy, funny banging head in ambulance. Hold up, I'm gonna have to check this one out off screen really quickly. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's see here. We're waiting for it to get done, and let's see here. So, just trying to make sure there's nothing too bad. It's nothing that bad. It's nothing that bad. We'll show it. Hopefully it doesn't have music, though, because I had it unmuted. So we're going to play it from right here.
What is that sticking up off the table? Is that a knife?
I don't know. It looks like one. Oh, he put a towel over it.
Oh my God.
Impale himself.
Dude's banging his head like 1 inch away from a knife. Plot twist, that's why he's really screaming. That knife just got him.
He's stabbing himself each time. It's
like, oh, he's banging his head on the table. Look, it's so funny. He's really getting stabbed.
You know, Matthew, rumor has it, that's the first perpetual motion machine in the world, was that guy in the back of that ambulance.
Maybe.
Dude, he's in there. Dude, this guy is literally going to keep doing that until he's sober. That's kind of, I gotta admit, that's not just kind of funny. That is funny, Drunky Monkey. And I gotta thank you for the support, and helping this channel to keep on running, and sharing with us a good joke. I like him. It's not really a joke. It's just some guy kind of banging his head into a table, but it's still pretty funny, and I gotta admit, pretty good one. I gotta admit. Oh, man, I'm telling you. And so, thank you so much once again for support, Drunky Monkey, and being one of our Australian viewers and supporting this channel and helping us to keep it running. You help us, not to go through the whole spiel, but you help us to keep the lights on, and if it wasn't for folks like you, Drunky Monkey, who had been around for a long time and of course are supporting to help this channel and keep it running, we wouldn't be able to be here. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one goes to another channel legend, Duncan VR, who puts in a $22 donation. And huge shout out to you, Duncan, and thank you very much as always for that support. And it says, Babuba, all the voices out tonight. And Kermit said, Guzlik Veliken, Aktun Javol, Arnold S. Said, I get no respect when I call. And Kermit answers, oh man, I'm telling you, ba quack, meow. Oh my, baba, moo rough, ant noise, baba. I have no idea how to do an ant noise. I still don't know how to do it.
I don't know. I mean, maybe
man,
that's
those
an
ants are getting whispery, man. Secretive ants.
The ant comes up to you. Oh, it's really government. You know, it's like, wait, is this thing from Iran? And then you look at it, it's the Ayatollah in disguise as an ant. But anyways, and also, thank you so much once again for the support, Duncan VR, and helping this channel to keep on running. It is folks like you who make this channel possible. And it wouldn't have been a Lee Spring Army stream without the animal noises. You know what I mean? You know what I mean, because you were the one who throws them in. And I gotta thank you so much once again for throwing in all of the noises. And sleep the lightman, and thank you. Thank you so much once again for helping this channel to keep on running. If it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible. And so, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one goes to, while I scroll up to it, goes to Margaret Hemsley, who puts in a $30 donation, and a huge shout out to you, Margaret, for that support, and thank you very much. And she says, Matthew, having the plague can sap your energy for months, as I'm finding out. Hang in there, and your ammo to make your own fireworks. She said, I'm poorish again, but don't think my smaller donations mean I think less of you. And we don't think that at all. Thank you for any support whatsoever, and we appreciate it all. And also, I can confirm that plague, I do recall that distinctly back from in July in the summer. That thing will absolutely kill you, sap your energy, and make you feel like you're on death's doorstep. So I'm sorry to hear you're dealing with that, because I can definitely sympathize with that, the whole plague situation. But Enforcer, what say you?
And I gotta thank you so much for the support, Margaret Hemsley, and any support from viewers is we highly appreciate, whether it's a large amount, whether it's the largest amount, whether it's $1. It means a lot to us because people support us however they can, and we are just completely blown away even if people throw in $1, because it shows to us that y'all find the channel worthwhile enough that it's worth supporting, period. You know, whether it be $500, which is the cap, or $1, which is the minimum, it all means the same to us because you folks appreciate so much that you went through the effort to just support the channel at all. And so we are greatly appreciative to any support that anyone gives. And I gotta thank you so much for that massive amount of support tonight, Margaret, because you're helping this channel to keep on running. And if it wasn't for folks like you, it wouldn't be possible. And also, I can't really speak to having the plague because me personally, I never had the plague. Funnily enough, I've just kind of gotten through life without getting it. I've been very lucky that way, and I always got to knock on wood when I say that. So there we go. Because eventually I will probably get it, but I have not gotten it over 3 years that this has been going on. I've just completely dodged it. I've been near people who actually had it. And like just been right beside them and still ended up not getting it. So either I'm immune to it or it's just a miracle, one or the other. And I'm thinking it's probably just a miracle. So with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address that well. And thank you so much once again for helping this channel to keep on running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, Margaret, once again, we wouldn't be able to be here tonight. We wouldn't be able to be here other nights in the future without the channels and the Lee Spring Army's continued support. And so thank you so much once again. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one goes to Freedom Principle, who puts in a $20 donation, who's a longtime channel viewer as well, and huge shout to you, Freedom Principle. And he says, Enforcer Matt Saudi says they will respond if the U.S. doesn't get Israel to cease actions in Gaza, and what do you think the response might be?
I don't really think there will be much of a response from the Saudis because the Saudis are largely U.S. backed at the moment, and they're kind of bound. They're kind of a little tied at the moment as far as their diplomatic responses could go. Because while it does look like, at least over the past year, that the Saudis may be moving away from the U.S. Middle Eastern sphere, they're getting tied into it a pretty good deal, again, because of the Houthi attacks in Yemen and also their rock bottom relationships with Iran. They probably won't really be able to do much against Israel, even if they wanted to. I would be much more concerned about a country like, say, Lebanon getting involved, because Lebanon, at least at the moment, diplomatically, does have the right kind of a storm where they could get involved. Of course, whether they be effective or not is a whole other story. But they could get involved. Syria could also try and get involved, but they're kind of embroiled in the civil war, so I would never see that happening. But I think their response would probably be some very strong finger wagging and some longer speeches at a UN General Assembly, which really means nothing. But that's just my take on it. I could be entirely wrong. Because then again, they did chop up a journalist like a few years ago just for the hell of it and got away with it. So who knows? Maybe they would respond in force of arms, but I'm having a feeling it's unlikely, at least in my opinion. The best way they would respond is probably diplomatically. And so with that, thank you for the support, Freedom Principle. And it's been a while since you've thrown in a super chat. And I got to thank you so much for throwing one in tonight and helping this channel to keep running. I'm saying that a lot tonight, but we're always appreciative to each and every one of y'all. And we always want y'all to know that if you throw in support, I want everyone to know who y'all are and how much y'all support the channel, because y'all are the reason we are able to run. We don't run ads on the streams. We don't have sponsors. And we pretty much, well, we don't pretty much, we do rely entirely on viewer support to be able to do this as a job. And so your support not only was able to get us a good question tonight, at least my opinion on the Saudi-Israeli relations, but also helps us to keep this channel running today, tomorrow, and the next day, hopefully. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well, Freedom Principle, and we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Marion Deemer, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much as well, Marion, for always being a longtime channel viewer and supporting the channel. And Marion says, Happy Halloween, LSA.
And happy Halloween. Of course, I hope y'all are all having a fun time. And interestingly enough, our viewership wasn't really impacted that much because of Halloween tonight. We were honestly expecting that we were going to have some low stream viewership because probably a lot of people are going to be out with their families on Halloween. Maybe y'all are, and there's nothing spookier than being on an Enforcer stream in the middle of Halloween. Y'all know why? Because boo, war. And so thank you so much once again for the support.
No, it's probably just because some folks are worried about going out trick-or-treating, and they're worried about getting more of the trick than the treat these days, I think.
That's it, man. Yeah, that's spin the block with the Glock kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But still, thank you so much for the support, Marion Deemer, and thank you for wishing everyone a happy Halloween. I hope y'all have had a pretty fun Halloween so far. Maybe this is the peak of your Halloween today, or maybe it's the low point. I don't really know, but nevertheless, we're always happy to have all of y'all here. And thank y'all all so much for joining us tonight as we've been continuing to cover this news even during Halloween. And so with that, thank you so much once again, Marion Deemer, for wishing everyone in the Lee Spring Army a happy Halloween. And I hope y'all did have one. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for the support.
And the next one goes to Margaret Hemsley, who puts in another super chat. This time it's a $12 donation. And thank you once again, Margaret, for that support. And she says, here's to replace what YouTube takes.
And thank you for the support, Margaret Hemsley. And thank you for throwing that in. YouTube does take 30% of all super chats. But I consider that to be an acceptable loss because it always ensures that y'all know where we can be supported. Unlike other YouTubers, well, really every other YouTuber who has like Buy Me a Coffee, Patreon, PayPal, GoFundMe. What are all the other ones, Matthew? Venmo, like WhatsApp,
Cash application.
Cash App, yeah. They have like 20 different ways that you can give them money, and it's so easy for scammers to take advantage of all that confusion and then just make their own money off of someone else's clout doing that. And so we kind of consider the 30% that YouTube takes to be the cost of making sure that none of y'all end up getting scammed by some random scammer out there. Because funnily enough, that's actually become very common at this point, and I've seen almost everyone in the community but us have to address scammers, because they pop up and look almost just like them, and they have so many different ways that you can pay them. It looks like them. So with that, I got to thank you so much once again for the support, Margaret Hemsley, and helping to cover the 30% that YouTube takes. And also, Brett B said, truly a wild rate, 30%. And yeah, it kind of is, you know, but at least it's not Twitch, where they take 50%, because that's something a lot of people don't know about Twitch. You have to sign a contract with them as well, saying that you practically just exclusively stream on Twitch, and then they take 50% of whatever you make. And so that's even worse. So YouTube is a little bit better in that regard, but at the same time, you know, YouTube is also pretty screwy, especially in other regards. But we are here to talk about the news, man. And we're not here to talk about that. But still, thank you so much once again for pointing that out. It is a little crazy, but, you know, it's not that bad. And then the Observer said pimps only take 20%. Are you saying that we're getting robbed? Are you saying we're getting robbed, sir? I have a feeling. I have a feeling we're not. But still, thank you so much once again for the support, Margaret, and helping this channel to keep on running. And I hope we addressed that fairly well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Ed, who puts in a $10 donation. And thank you very much, Ed, for that support. He says, LSA, mad Irish Ed here. He's mad. Big question about Defense Production Act. In 2020, DPA used for respirators. Okay. And that was written in the super chat, by the way. And it says, in 2022, DPA used for windmills. Grr. DPA now for all 4 outgoing munitions. Minimum of 5 times as many as we think.
And I thank you for the support, but I have a feeling that I'm at a loss because I don't know what the DPA stands for. Do you know what this stands for, Matthew?
The Defense Production Act?
Yeah, it's the Defense Production Act. Let's see. Interesting. I thank you for sharing that, Ed, and that is true. The Defense Production Act has been used for other things before, and I kind of got to be honest, the other ones really weren't like for national defense. You know, like in the Marshall term, and I kind of found that weird when they were used. So, like it was a little understandable, but at the same time, I was like, that's a little weird. You know, I was like, that's not really defense. But anyways, I do thank you for the support and sharing that. And it is interesting to hear that the Defense Production Act is getting used a little bit again. And I hope that we get to see that it's used in full to get the U.S. ready for whatever may be coming around the corner. And also, Walamo, you said, what is the enforcer enforcing? Enforcing your ban? Get him out of here, Matthew. Get him out of here. I'm just kidding, by the way, really quickly. We'll answer that. We'll answer that real quick. We don't enforce anything. That was my gamer tag. This was actually a gaming channel before we became a news channel nearly 2 years ago. And so the name just carried over from being a gaming channel. So it went from being the enforcer to the enforcer, and then we just covered news. It's kind of like how Perun, who's another YouTube channel, actually was a gaming channel as well, and then went into covering news like we did. So that's the story. So we're not enforcing anything. That's just my in-game name on most video games, except for a few, but that's beside the point. And so with that, I hope that does address both of those fairly well. And thank you so much once again, Angry Irish Ed, for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to keep this thing running. And also, Walamo, I hope that did answer the question as to what we are enforcing, because it's literally nothing. It's just a cool name. And so with that, we're on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Butchie the Blacksmith, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Butchie, for the support. I said, what happened to the PLO? They were all up to all kinds of shenanigans. And I was, as I was growing up as a kid in the 70s and 80s, and did they become Hamas? Is Democracy Manifest?
This is Democracy Manifest. Have a look at a headlock here. Get your hands off my...
So, to answer your question, they are still around. In fact, they hold 50 of the 132 seats in the Palestinian Legislative Council. They just kind of aren't up to the terroristic activities they used to be up to. They kind of took a back seat to Hamas and Hezbollah. And so I hope that answers the question fairly well, just off of a quick search, because I was like, what did happen to the PLO? Because, you know, we have talked about that actually here. You know, we were like, what happened to the Palestinian Liberation Front and all that stuff, or the PLO, which is what that is. And apparently they just kind of moved into being more of a political party in Palestine than a terroristic organization. But with that, I hope that does answer that well, my good Butchie the Blacksmith's friend, aka Butchie 777. And thank you so much for helping this channel to keep on running. It is Democracy Manifest, after all, but they didn't turn into Hamas. They still exist. It's just they're more of a political party now. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support and helping the channel to keep on running. And thank you as well for being one of our Elite Spring Army viewers from the UK. I don't think it's even stated much anymore on this channel how much of an international organization the Elite Spring Army is. There are people from every corner of the world, and there's a decent amount of y'all who are from some of the English-speaking countries of the world, like Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and the United Kingdom, as well as the United States, which is our largest viewership. And I think it's really cool to see folks like you, Butchie777, here at the crack of freaking dawn in Britain, pretty much, watching this show. And I thank you so much for being here with us right now while we're live, and also supporting the channel to help us to keep this thing running. And I hope I was able to answer the question well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to BC Skyman, who puts in another 10. And thank you once again, BC, for that support. And sadly, he's not here to hear it, but thank you very much, BC, for that support once again. And we also have a $10 donation from Kenta Creek, who says, just a quick fact check. The Tonkin Gulf incident is no lie. My father was on the Maddox during the attacks, and please feel free to contact me if, ?S.
And I thank you so much for the support. And I hate to tell you, man, Tonkin was a lie. I'm just kidding. You know, they say it was, but back in the day, they said that they were being attacked by the North Vietnamese Navy, or some kind of vessels from North Vietnam, and then that's what got the U.S. largely involved in Vietnam in an armed conflict. But, you know, there's still a lot of debate whether that really happened or not. I think the official U.S. investigation on the Department of Defense's side said that it actually didn't happen, but then a lot of people still insisted that it did, in fact, happen, and, you know, it was just that the Department of Defense was, you know, trying to bend towards some kind of public pressure or something, making that statement or investigation. Nevertheless, if your Paul was on that boat, I would believe him more so than the Department of Defense, because if y'all remember, it wasn't that long ago, it was just about 2 weeks ago, that U.S. bases were getting attacked in the Middle East, and there were people getting injured on those bases, and the Department of Defense said, nothing's happened, everything's fine. And then a week later, they came out and said, actually, everyone got wounded. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one. But thank you once again for helping us keep this thing running.
And the next one goes to Teslans, who puts in a 10 and says, enforcing good quality, prominent current events news is available with humanitarian fundraising action where it is needed.
And I gotta say, that's a pretty nice little pitch that you just gave about our channel here, Teslans. And I gotta thank you so much for helping the channel to keep on running, and also saying some kind things about the channel. I think it's pretty nice that we do fundraising the way we do. Of course, I'm kind of like the salesman at this point for this kind of fundraising, because everyone else does different kinds of fundraising that aren't through YouTube. We're really the only ones that do. And while we've kind of ended up not really being big fans of YouTube as a platform anymore, to be quite honest, it still does run honest fundraising efforts through YouTube Giving. And that's the way we've run our fundraisers throughout the entire war. And we know where the support goes because YouTube manages it all and sends it directly to the nonprofits. And so I got to thank you so much for appreciating that. And also saying that we have good quality, prominent current events news. We try our best. And honestly, I think I'm going to have to get back on my title game and probably only get back to putting one thing in the title instead of two like we've been doing over about the past week, because it's really hard to try and sell two whole different bits of news. But nevertheless, a lot of y'all have been still getting on and watching this news as we've been putting it out. But I got to thank you so much once again, Teslans, for the kind words and the support and helping the channel to keep on running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you who supported this channel, and I say this in all seriousness, and I say this to remind y'all that y'all's support isn't just something that gets thrown into like a money machine. Like, it's not just another part of the cog. It's the only way we run the channel. And I gotta thank everyone, including you, Teslans, who just threw in your support for helping this channel to keep running. Because if we didn't have y'all around supporting this channel, we wouldn't be able to keep this thing rolling. We're the only channel in the entire war genre that runs this way. I think there's only one other, but that's because they got demonetized. But beyond that, we are the only channel who started off like this and keeps on running this way. And y'all been able to allow us to not have to bend our will to sponsors, to AdSense, to anyone, anywhere. We don't have to censor our news or what we say. We're able to get the news out the exact way that it's supposed to be, thanks to y'all's continued support. And so, thank you so much once again for helping this channel to keep on running, Teslans, because your support is the reason why this channel is the way it is. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Guamson Cruz, who puts in a 5 and says, "Let's go USA! Rolling strike package, Foxtrot Alpha, Foxtrot, something." Let's see here. What did I just say? Oh, I think it's innocent, I think. He said, LMAO. Question from the chat, please.
Thank you for the support. And thank you for helping that channel to keep on running. And we will make sure to get a question from the chat. And thank you so much once again for helping this channel to keep on running. And so, with that, what do we got, Matthew?
The question goes to Jay, who says, "Do you think the USA will conduct large-scale ground operations in the Middle East?"
At the moment, most likely not. But it keeps on looking like the situation's escalating. It's escalating consistently. It's not rapid. It's not slow either. It's kind of at a consistent pace. And I think we might get involved in ground operations. I don't think they're going to be large scale at the start. But if the situation continues to deteriorate beyond initial U.S. involvement on a smaller scale, I think we're certainly going to ramp up to large-scale operations in the Middle East, most specifically against Iran. And based off of what we're seeing, maybe there would be a ground invasion from the borders of Iraq into Iran, but I'm not really sure how the diplomatic side of things would work, if that would be feasible or not. We may end up just launching a large contingent of Marines into the area of the Persian Gulf on the Iranian coast, and then just have them construct an airfield with the Seabees, and then start bringing in the army that way. Who knows? But I think it's a possibility, but right now I'd say it's probably a 30% chance based off of everything we're seeing right now. And so with that, hope that does address that live chat well. And thank you so much once again for sponsoring that. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one goes to Be Like Music, who puts in a 5 and says, "Love the show. We get no respect around here. We get no respect around here. I'm telling you. Keep it up, fellas."
Oh, man, I'm telling you. We get no respect around here. Oh, man, I'm telling you. Oh, man. Oh, man, everyone hates us. Oh, man, I try and tell the news. Everyone wants to tell me I'm wrong. Oh, man, why don't you do your job better? Oh, man, I'm telling you.
But still, thank you so much for the support. I gotta tell you, we really do get no respect around here. We have seen this so many times at this point. It's a joke in between Matthew and me. We'll get to the news before everyone else does. Like tonight, like with U.S. Special Forces arriving in Israel. That was something that was a fairly new development right before our stream. Almost nobody's covered that on YouTube, so we're the first to it nearly. And then people will come out of the woodworks to tell us we're wrong, and then tomorrow everyone's going to make their video on Special Forces entering Israel. It's just so aggravating to me. It's like, I don't mean to throw out smoke, but we'll throw out a little bit of smoke right now. Like, if these people did we'll say what?
Shade.
Shade.
Not smoke.
Well, smoke, shade, but like to throw out some shade. Like, if folks just did their jobs better in the war reporting world, there wouldn't be so many people saying we're wrong, because they would just see that we're getting to it first. So it's like, why don't you improve your game instead of just assuming everyone that gets to the story first, like us, is clickbaiting.
Oh, man, I'm telling you, we get no respect.
But honestly, serious input. But with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address that well with a side of seriousness. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Timmy M, who puts in a 5 and says, "Thank you for all your hard work and dedication."
And thank you so much, Timmy, for the support and enjoying our hard work and dedication, because we do this every single night to get the news out to y'all. And I gotta thank you so much once again for enjoying it and appreciating it enough and finding it worthwhile to support, because you help us to be able to cover this news every single night. And so with that, thank you so much once again, and we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Aaron Cooper, who puts in a 5 as well and says, "Boom goes the fascist."
And yes, a boom, a bada boom goes the fascist. And I gotta say, the pro-Palestinian people aren't really doing themselves any favors when they're creating lynch mobs in the Caucasus Mountain region in southern Russia. And also when we see anti-Semitism just kind of taking a upward climb, like, pretty quickly, even here in the U.S., it's actually kind of concerning, because there are Jewish people around in America right now that are actually kind of a little anxious when they go out in public, because people are singling them out just because they're Jewish, which is pretty messed up, because that's exactly what the Nazis did in World War II, and look what that turned into. So I would say, thank you so much for the support. Boom goes the fascists, and hopefully we can end up defeating them. And so that, we're on to the next one.
And the next one goes to CK Bold, who puts in a 5 as well and says, "Take a live chat question." And that is CK Bold's regular order, the usual, the number 5. And thank you very much, CK, for that support. And the live chat question goes to Rangers Rule, who says, "Did Saudi shoot down a missile from Yemen?"
Nah. Every single missile that's been shot by the Houthis, that's such a weird name, Houthi. Houthi. You know what? I'm not even gonna, because there's only one thing that rhymes with that. That's not good. But
Houthi and the Blowfish, I'm telling you, they're great people.
We're talking about Houthi and Qasim or whatever the hell his name is.
But anyways, all the Houthi missiles that have been shot down were shot down by the Israelis, Air Force, the Arrow 2 surface-to-air missile system, or the U.S. Navy in the northern Red Sea. We haven't actually seen the Saudis shoot down any missiles yet, but at the same time, they're also getting missiles fired at them from the Houthis, which is really weird because I don't think they shoot those down either. I think they just end up hitting their targets. But with that,
I've got to tell you, the Houthis are near Djibouti. It's a whole big deal. It's a great big deal. Got to tell you, I had some Houthis in my day. Oh man, it wasn't Houthis, but you know what I mean.
But anyways, with that, thank you for the support. We're on to the next one.
And up next, we have another super chat from Irish Ed, who throws in a 5 and says, "My pops was in Nam during the Tet offense. Doesn't talk much. The ship attacked was actually another U.S. ship. Bad intel."
You know, Ed, I would throw in some input here, but I feel like that's going to be our next A10 Warthog fight in the live chat, is what happened at the Gulf of Tonkin incident. But I do thank you for the support, Ed, helping the channel to keep on running, and that is really cool to hear that your dad was in Vietnam. I've known a good amount of people who were in Vietnam and got to hear a lot of their stories. Of course, they're living and passed away now, some of them. But all their stories were incredibly interesting, and each one was completely different than the other, kind of giving a wide spread of what the war in Vietnam really looked like on the ground. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support and sharing that little tidbit. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one goes to Patrick Forney, who puts in a 5. And thank you very much, Patrick, for that support, and said, "What about all the kid that died?"
Where?
I'm not exactly sure.
I thank you for the support. I think I'm going to have to declare ignorance on that one because I don't know what kids died where, according to your question. So unfortunately, I won't be able to answer that, but I do thank you for the support and helping the channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one goes to Dark Warrior 137, who puts in a 5 and says, "Russia's fighting by throwing the sword at the enemy. Low chance it works, and if it don't, then you're now without your weapon because you threw it away."
Exactly. That's what I've been saying. And it was stupid for them to get involved in the war in Ukraine anyways. And then they did, and it's gone poorly for them. And now they're trying to get their finger in the pie in the Middle East. It's like, when will you learn? When will you learn this lesson, old man? But anyways, thank you for the support, helping the channel to keep on running. And I'd certainly agree with that. That's about the best analogy to what the Russians have been doing for 2 years at this point. And so, with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again.
And the next one we got comes from Signfine Belly, who puts in a 5 and says, "I've been watching your streams since late winter, early spring 2023. I wish I watched the streams earlier. Happy Halloween, and long live the LOC."
Thank you so much for wishing us a happy Halloween, and thank you so much for being here for nearly 11 months. Actually, it is 11 months starting tomorrow if you start watching at the beginning of this year. You've been here an incredibly long time, and it's crazy to think that that's only half the time we've been doing this, but it's almost been a year. But I gotta thank you so much for appreciating it enough to find it worthwhile to support, because if it wasn't for folks like you, it wouldn't be possible for us to keep this thing running. I'm serious. I'm quite serious. I'm for real. You know, we pay bills. We pay rent to be in this house, in the basement. We also, you know, pay the bills for the car, you know, everything, you know. We live like normal people. But I got to thank you so much for the support and helping us to keep this thing running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to do that, to be able to do this as a job. And so thank you so much once again. And we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Hoodoo Texas, who puts in a 5 and says, "We need more doobie videos, man." And says something there at the end that's sketching me out of town. I'm not very familiar with that, but Enforcer, what say you?
Man, we need them more doobies. And I gotta thank you for the support. And we will be trying to find more doobie videos. Like Zoink Scoop, he pulled out the doobie. Raggy, it's extra sticky. But anyways, we will be trying to find more doobie videos if we can. I have a feeling they're going to become a lot more common here in the next few weeks. So we will make sure to have more doobie videos for the lot of you. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does the rest of that fairly well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Neil Vizanon, who puts in a 5 and says, "Just want to say hi, and I haven't thrown in a super chat in a while." And hello to you, Neil.
And hello, Neil. I hope you're having a good time. And thank you so much for the support and throwing in a super chat, because it does help the channel to keep on running. And it is good to see that you're still around. And so, Oh, hello there. And so with that, thank you so much once again, and we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Phantom23, who puts in a 5 as well, and says, NYT article about USA Special Forces in Gaza. Prayers, please.
And thank you for the support. And we actually covered that first thing in the news tonight. And so hopefully they will do well. They're not going to be involved in combat operations officially. And so hopefully they end up being safe over there. Best of luck to them, though. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support. Hope that does address that well. And we're on to the next one.
And the next one goes to James Dunn, who puts in a 2 and says, I think those IDF tanks are the only ones with AC.
Yes, that's, well, that's not exactly correct because the Abrams does have AC too. But I think the Merkava is the only one in the world that has a cooled water system in it, where it cools the water and then it has like a massive camelback system in the tank that provides cooled drinking water to every position inside the tank. The loader, the gunner, the commander, and the driver, which is very rare, and I don't think it's in any other tank except for the Merkava. But it's a really cool tank. Different in many ways compared to other Western tanks, but it also remains pretty high up there as far as Western standards go. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And the next one goes to 420, who puts in a 2 as well and says, whether or not I like the polls, I will vote to Kip.
And thank you so much for the support. And thank you for enjoying the polls. The polls do eat up a little bit of time, however. And right now, if we did have polls, we would probably be pushing about 11:40 or 11:50 right now, local time, trying to get this done. And considering how tired we are getting, we are trying to find ways to shave down a little bit of time here and there so that we can make sure to get off a little bit earlier. But still, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that well. And we will see about having a few polls, maybe 1 or 2, but we'll have to make sure to like either cut down our responses or just cut down the sheer number of polls so that way we can start to make the streams just a little bit shorter so we can get a little bit more sleep. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and we are now moving into our live chat questions. We are fresh out of Super Chats, but once again, thank you all very much for the support, and we appreciate it very much. And our first live chat question is going to go to Happy Dragon, who says, if you dressed up for Halloween, what and who would you be?
I would be the enforcer. I would just dress up in the World War I thing and just do the whole enforcer shtick. So that would honestly be what I would do, but I'm not doing that right now. I'm actually wearing a white t-shirt, like I'm in a cult, and Nautica shorts. So just in case y'all are wondering what I was wearing. Matthew Fitcheck, what are you wearing?
Me? I've got on a little bit of a polo shirt and a little bit of some shorts. I don't know who makes these shorts, though, because I don't keep up with it very much.
Man, I know mine are made by Nautica because it's nautical. There's a sailboat on my shorts.
But I'm just kidding. There's no sailboat on the shorts. But still, that's what I would.
Man, I'm about to be drip checking like that fell off the... What was that actor off of Spider-Man that played the villain? What's that guy that... Mark Defoe? Willem Dafoe? Yeah, Willem Dafoe. I wonder every name but the real name. But yeah, have you seen that drip check that he did? There's like pulling out the shirt and everything, being like, this is like Prada. This is something else. He's like standing on the side of the street in New York or something.
I think I may have seen that.
It's pretty funny.
Maybe. And also, Matthew, I don't know if you see that in the live chat. That was a good one. That's actually giving me the crack up.
Man.
Oh, man. You know what? That's a good one. I'm not going to say what it was, but that was a good one. And so with that, we are on to the next. But I hope we answered that fairly well.
And the next one goes to Russ Rizzo, who puts in a 2 and says, oh, I was an ugly kid. Oh, I had to trick or treat by phone. Oh, I'm telling you.
Oh, man, I'm telling you. I used to get no respect around here. Oh, man, I was an ugly kid. Real ugly. Oh, man. Well, how ugly were you? Oh, man, I'm telling you. I was an ugly kid. I had to trick or treat by phone. Oh, man, I'm telling you. Oh, man, and when I'd open up the door when I got older, the kids would give me candy. Oh, man, I'm telling you. It was terrible. Real terrible. Oh, man, and whenever I'd see it, my eyes would bulge out of my head like this. Oh, man, I'm telling you.
But still, thank you so much for the support, Russ Rizzo, and I hope you enjoyed that fairly well. And thank you so much once again for the support, helping this channel to keep on running. And so with that, we're on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Butchie the Blacksmith, yet again, who puts in another 10 pound. And he said the corgis need the belly rub and the treat. And for whatever you guys need, and
Gerasimov. Soyo! And another best. And thank you so much for the support, Butchie the Blacksmith, and helping this channel to keep on running. And I'd agree, the corgis need belly rubs. They need treats. They need love. And we try and give that to them every freaking day. I love those dogs. I love them too much. And also, Mr. Corgi has finally learned how to dodge cars, which is good because now I don't have to worry about him being outside when I come home from school. But still, thank you so much once again for the support. Just a little bit of a side note there on Mr. Corgi's developmental process. But still, thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, and we will make sure to use your support to take some free time to pet those precious dogs. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you so much once again.
And moving back to our live chat questions, we have one from Honda Tech who says, does it look likely that the U.S. will be involved very soon?
Possibly. I would say right now, U.S. involvement in larger scale than what we're seeing right now is probably about 60%, but us getting involved in full-scale ground invasion is most likely 30%. And so with that, I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the third to last question of the night.
And this one goes to Fighting Finn, who says, does Hamas have any shithead drones from Iran?
Hamas does not at the moment, from what we understand. We haven't seen any of them in use, but that doesn't mean that they may pop up a little bit in the future. And so with that, we are on to the next live chat, and then we'll be on to the second to last one of the night.
And we have a 2 from Devin Harris, who says, all the way from Infantata, Philippines, Slav Ukraine.
Infanta.
Infantata.
Man, we gonna go to Infantata. But here it is, and I think this is it, right here. Really cool. Where is this in the Philippines, by the way? Oh, this is up on the main island. That's really neat. And so let's drop down.
You are getting ready to fight those Chinese warships off the coast, aren't you?
What are the charges? Fighting a succulent Chinese navy.
But really nice. Really, like, it's actually kind of reminds me of, like, the Everglades in Florida. But still.
Man, I feel like a king cobra is, like, living in the place. Like, man, I feel like they'd jump out of, like, those weeds over there any second.
Man, I feel like Gordon Ramsay's about to come through here and go, today, we're about to try some local Filipino food. Or something like that. But still.
Look, on that site will rise building. It's on that site will rise building.
on the site shall shire house. It's like, oh, cool. But anyways, thank you so much once again for the support and being all the way from the Philippines. I hope you've been enjoying the show tonight. I don't even know what time it is in the Philippines, but I hope it's a good time to watch. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support, Devin, and helping this channel to keep on running. And of course, Slava Ukraini. And with that, we are on to the second to last question of the night.
And this one goes to Kibo, who says, is U.S. support for Ukraine beginning to wane as U.S. activities and support for Israel is obviously on the increase?
I don't think so. I think it's kind of a temporary thing, shift of focus, kind of like we've been doing on this channel a little bit. But Ukraine will enter the focal point again because it is strategically important. Whether it's sensational or not, it's one thing. Whether it's strategically important, that's a whole other. And it will be strategically important. It still is strategically important. And I think the support will continue to flow into Ukraine and Israel. It's just that as far as Americans are concerned, you know, and this is actually a little bit opposite from our channel, but as far as the U.S. government is concerned, and the way politicians look at it on both sides, they consider the Middle East to be exponentially more important than Eastern Europe as far as strategic concerns go, at least right now. And so that's why it always looks like they're more than happy to go through massive amounts of support to Israel, almost in one bulk sum larger than what we've given to Ukraine over 2 years. But then, you know, it seems like they're kind of like trying to throw Ukraine to the wayside because it's Eastern Europe. And in most people's minds, you know, that's no big deal. Although it's a massive deal, really. But with that, I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the final question of the night. And so, who is the lucky last person to throw in the lucky last question of the night?
And that viewer is 420, who says, do you think that the war in Iran is inevitable, or can it be avoided, and will China influence the decision?
I have a feeling that it can possibly be avoided, and I have a feeling that we're working on trying to avoid a war as usual as the United States. But it's also got a pretty decent chance of going on, because if the Iranians continue to push the Middle East into a regional war, the United States will respond with a armed involvement or an armed intervention in Iran. That is an inevitable fact if the Iranians keep up what they're doing. And so there is a way to avoid it. If the Iranians back off, they'll most likely be completely avoided. But if they continue to have U.S. bases attacked through their Iranian-backed groups, and they continue to support Hamas and Hezbollah attacking Israel, we'll most likely see that there is a ground invasion of Iran at some point in the future. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, and it is the end of tonight's stream. I've got to thank every single one of y'all so much for being here tonight. It's, of course, an absolute honor to be able to run this stream night after night, week after week, month after month, year after year for all of y'all, and let y'all know of what the major news is of each and every day. If y'all have enjoyed this channel, please make sure to hit the like button. We're up to 2,049 likes. If it was a year, we'd be in the future right now, and I don't even know what would happen in the future. But if you hit the like button, it helps this stream to get out to more people. And if you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe. I have noticed that the last time we put out a video, nearly 46% of the people who watched that video were not subscribed to the channel. I don't know what the numbers are on the streams, but I have a feeling that probably about 25 to 30% of y'all are unsubscribed. Shame. Subscribe. And also hit the bell button because it notifies you when these streams go live, which is 6 days a week at 10 p.m. Eastern Time every single night, covering the news of the war. And so with that, good night, good luck, take care, stay safe. Slava Ukraini. God bless Israel. God bless the United States. And long live the Lee Spring Army. The Lee Spring Army will never die.
And good night, folks. See you all tomorrow. Thank you all for another great stream. And of course, Slava Ukraine and God bless Israel. Enjoy this music.
Yes. The Lee Spring Army sends its regards.